Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Harag looked at Larry, and it seemed Larry had no intention of leaving. If a war really breaks out, even an official wizard cannot avoid being dragged in. Me? Larry laughed. I'm just a logistics person. If it really comes to a fight, my knowledge of magic potions is far more useful than combat. If even I have to take the field, it means I should prepare to run away. Don't official wizards also have to sign a contract with Moonlight Forest? Harag felt that Larry didn't seem to be bound by much. That's the benefit of being a master of magic potions. The contract I signed with Moonlight Forest is different from others. Strictly speaking, we're just in an employment relationship, so I'm not that heavily constrained. Larry explained. Harag suddenly understood. I see. This is the advantage of having expertise. Seems like being specialized is appreciated everywhere. Next, I'll tell you some things to pay attention to in the promotion process. Larry continued. There's an old saying in the wizard world. No promotion process is exactly the same. It means that when wizards advance, all sorts of situations can arise, and you'll need to use the knowledge you have to adapt and manage accordingly. Of course, you're only promoting to second-class wizard apprentice, so you shouldn't encounter many difficulties. Just remember that a wizard's most powerful weapon is always knowledge, which can solve most of your problems. After returning home, Harag spent 2 days digesting the experience Larry had taught him, then took out the Dawn Potion. Shenlong, begin comprehensive monitoring of the body state. Prompt feedback if any issues arise during the promotion process. Task has been filed. A 3D human model appeared in front of Harag, representing his current bodily state, with numerous parameters denoting his current physical condition beside it. Harag removed the wooden stopper from the Dawn Potion, and a puff of purple mist emerged, spreading outward. He tilted his head back and drank the pale purple liquid of the Dawn Potion, which tasted very bitter and slightly painful. Once the Dawn Potion entered his body, it became a surge of energy that spread throughout. Heart rate accelerating, current heart rate, 157. Toxic substances have entered the body, causing damage. Current damage degree, 3%. Stop promotion and dispel toxic substances. Do not stop, continue. Harag closed his eyes, knowing this was the effect of the potion and that he must not stop. A layer of purple flames emerged from his body. The flames had no temperature and couldn't ignite the clothes he was wearing. Current heart rate, 267. Body damage degree, 10%. Gene chain is breaking. Harag's current bodily state could be described as dire, yet he did not panic at all, remaining mentally stable. Gene chain is reorganizing. Harag, look at what this is. A woman's voice came from behind, but Harag seemed not to hear and ignored it. He ignored it, yet the voice did not cease. Instead, it became more numerous and chaotic. The odd changes, not the even. Look at the symbols and quadrants. Wake up. They're calling roll. Harag's strong spiritual power kept him awake, focusing only on the promotion process. Boom! After an indefinite duration, Harag suddenly felt as if his head exploded. These are wind energy particles. The red ones should be fire energy particles, and the black ones are dark energy particles. Previously, Harag could only sense the free energy particles in the surrounding space, but couldn't distinguish their attributes. But now, he could clearly perceive the attribute of each energy particle. So, which type of energy particle is suitable for me? As a first-class wizard apprentice advances to a second-class wizard apprentice, they sense one or more types of suitable energy particles for themselves. Wizard apprentices can absorb these energy particles into their bodies, continuously radiating and enhancing their constitution. Harag's physical strength would increase continually with this radiation, making his own body somewhat radiant. At the wizard apprentice stage, this radiance wouldn't significantly affect ordinary people, but having offspring with them would be difficult. Meanwhile, wizard apprentices, when using magic of the same attribute, will experience enhanced casting speed and spell strength. This does not mean other spells can't be learned. Rather, magic from the particular attribute becomes much stronger. Harag took a deep breath, commenced meditation anew, and opened his hands to absorb the energy particles surrounding his body. He no longer absorbed all energy particles indiscriminately, as he'd done previously, instead letting them congregate on his body's surface. Those harmonizing with him automatically entered his body, those that didn't floated on the surface. Turns out they're dark energy particles. Harag discovered the one attribute he attuned to was the dark energy attribute particles. This is a type of advanced energy particle, subdivided into many subtypes such as negative energy particles, shadow energy particles, all belonging to the dark energy class. Looks like I will need to specialize in dark energy spells henceforth. Wizard apprentices can achieve greater effectiveness by specializing in the direction they naturally attune to. So many choose to pursue specialization. Particularly upon reaching the stage of becoming a third-class wizard apprentice, it becomes preparation for advancing to official wizard, demanding more specialization. Harag's previously met rock seemed to be doing the same, specializing in earth element magic, as the magic he utilized was primarily earth-based. Current heart rate, 97. Body is gradually recovering. Harag felt his physical state starting to stabilize. Shenlong, check current bodily state. Harag Merlin, power 3.0, agility 3.1, constitution 4.8, spirit 11.0, magic power 40%. Harag nodded. Promotion succeeded, just as Mr. Larry said. With my current spiritual power, the advancement to second-class wizard apprentice should be relatively effortless. Dark energy shield. He cast a shield on himself to examine the post-promotion effects. Shenlong, how does the current dark energy shield compare to before in strength? After calculation, because most of the magic in this spell was composed of dark energy particles, shield strength increased by 63%. Magic power consumption decreased by 39%. Harag contemplated. No wonder second-class wizard apprentices start choosing specialization. This strength enhancement is significant. Spending 100% effort yields 150% return. Having completed the promotion, he didn't indulge in jubilance, but sat steadily down to complete meditation. In his mind, there were 6 stars, and he needed to complete meditation on 4 more stars to advance to third-class wizard apprentice. Harag searched within the starry sky briefly, chose a star, and began meditating. Without the aid of meteor grass, the meditation speed is considerably slower. Harag had been utilizing meteor grass assistance for some time, and transitioning back was challenging given the slowed meditation speed. Meteor grass was no longer useful for him at this stage. Thus, he needed to think of other ways to speed up meditation thereafter. After Harag finished his meditation, he went downstairs to take a hot shower. There was a strong smell of medicine all over his body. Northern Forest region. After Harag went out, he clearly felt that the atmosphere was different from usual, and the faces of the wizards passing by were somewhat serious. He also saw many people who were already injured. When passing by the flea market, Harag noticed that it was much quieter than usual. At this time, there should be more and more frequent transactions. It seems that many people have already taken tasks to flee Moonlight Forest. Harag was focused on preparing for his promotion during this time and paid relatively little attention to the movements in the forest. After arriving in town, he found that the crowd was significantly smaller than usual. The originally bustling gathering place now had only small groups of people, and they all looked worried, seemingly unable to find a way to weather the storm. The tasks allowing people to leave the forest are probably gone now, and even if there are any, they would be snatched up immediately, and those tasks are not enough to go around. Seeing these scenes, Harag quickened his pace, feeling the need to leave here as soon as possible. Otherwise, even with Mr. Larry's help, he might not be able to get out, as, in the face of the war machine, many things are very fragile. Teacher, I successfully got promoted. Harag reported his situation. Larry was as usual, poured him a cup of coffee, and then poured one for himself as well. Add the sugar yourself. Larry pushed the coffee through the air in front of Harag. Your spiritual power is very stable. and the quality of your magic power is also very high. So I determined that there is no problem in your promotion to a second-class wizard apprentice. I'm not surprised by that. Larry then, with a serious expression, said, "Now, to the main topic, pack up and get ready to leave in the next 2 days." Malcolm, that lunatic, captured 100 pregnant women, presumably preparing to perform some evil, powerful spell. Moonlight Forest has already reported this to Augustus Academy. Malcolm's actions severely violate the basic principles of the wizard organizations on the Kala continent, which is to not allow the mass slaughter of ordinary people. Harag asked, if Malcolm indeed slaughtered these 100 ordinary people, what punishment would he face? Sigh, it would just be some financial penalties. Larry sighed. This is how it is with official wizards, especially powerful ones. Rules barely restrain them anymore. The ordinary people on the Kala continent are a vital source of fresh blood for wizard organizations, and the wizards' lives actually rely on the production materials produced by ordinary people, so there's always been a rule against mass slaughter. Malcolm's actions happened to draw the attention of various wizard organizations, but not to the extent that they felt compelled to intervene and stop him. This will only result in Malcolm facing some financial consequences. Larry continued, I predict that when Malcolm's spell takes form, that will be the time when Moonlight Forest and Green Cottage fully go to war. So, you need to leave here as soon as possible. Harag nodded. Understood, but where should I go? This was a question Harag had been pondering these days. With the Kala continent being so vast, where would be a better place to go? I recommend you go to the Doris Kingdom on the west coast, where the regime is stable, far away from major wizard organizations. You can pass this period relatively peacefully. The only downside is the scarcity of magic potion materials there. But that's the case everywhere, as places rich in magic potion materials aren't far from wizard organizations. And the task I'm giving you is to go to the Doris Kingdom and find a magic potion material called moonstone grass. Larry pulled out a map, pointing to a large country on the west coast as he introduced it. I remember you have a space ring, right? I prepared a batch of magic potion materials for you, enough to last you a while. If you lack any basic magic potions, you can self-brew with these materials and practice a bit. Larry turned and walked to a room by the side, opening the door. He beckoned to Harag. Come and have a look. Harag followed over, and looking into the room by the door, so many. The room was full of magic potion materials, all neatly categorized and placed. These are materials for basic types of magic potions, not valuable. I had a premonition that a war might erupt, so I pre-ordered a lot of magic potion materials. Now, many magic potion materials in Moonlight Forest Magic Pharmacy are being sold in limited quantities. Larry explained. Harag nodded, understanding that if war broke out, something like magic potion materials would definitely be centrally managed and controlled by Moonlight Forest officials, and the amounts wizard apprentices could buy probably wouldn't suffice for themselves. Thank you, teacher. Harag solemnly bowed to express his gratitude, though Larry made it seem simple. This gift was a generous one, worth an unknown amount of magic stones. Larry chuckled. This is nothing. All right, store them in your space ring, go back and pack. And when you're ready, come find me. I'll take you out. Harag chuckled hearing this. He was brought back by Larry, and now to escape the turmoil, he needed to be taken out by him again, forming a cycle. Teacher, I'll head back now. After leaving Larry's house, Harag hadn't walked far when he suddenly met Bessie on the street. She looked as though she was also heading to see Larry. Bessie, Harag greeted her. Bessie seemed a bit flustered, her gaze avoiding Harag's eyes. She lowered her head and said, Harag, congratulations on being promoted to a third-class wizard apprentice. Harag congratulated her. He had heard before that Bessie had been successfully promoted, but had not encountered her until now, only sending messages over the talisman stone. Thank you. Bessie seemed to have something on her mind and didn't say much more, continuing to walk with her head lowered. Harag reflected on Bessie's demeanor, feeling something was off. After thinking for a bit, he suddenly realized what was wrong. Why is Bessie dressed so alluringly? Bessie was wearing a pair of black silk stockings with suspenders. Her legs were already long, and the outfit made them even more enticing. More importantly, when Herag brushed past her, he noticed that under Bessie's robe, she was only wearing a small XX. Since knowing Bessie, she had always dressed very conservatively, always wearing long pants, and never dressing so seductively. Herag felt there might be some gossip here, but shook his head, continuing on his way, as it had nothing to do with him. After purchasing some items hard to find outside, he returned home and began sorting out the things he needed to take. With so many magic potion materials now piled up in his space ring, not many large items could be taken, so he decided to bring along those spell model books. After finishing up, Herag picked up a quill pen and wrote a letter to Lillian, informing her that he would be leaving Moonlight Forest for a while and might not be contactable for a short period due to certain circumstances. I also wonder if I can still send out this letter. Herag felt the letter should still be able to be sent out, as Moonlight Forest had only implemented entry and exit controls. As long as there was a legitimate reason, people could still go out, so the transmission of letters should still be normal. The next day, Herag arrived at Larry's house. He was wearing light armor, with a longsword at his waist, looking nothing like a wizard. This light armor was bought for 7 magic stones from the flea market. It's harder than regular armor and has some enchantments that enhance its defense against magic. Herag planned to act as a knight after going out. Wearing a wizard robe would be too conspicuous in the ordinary world. "Ready?" Larry asked. Herag nodded slightly. "Follow me." Larry led Herag upstairs. Herag had only been to the 4th floor before, never above that, so he didn't know what was up there. Following Larry all the way up, Herag counted silently in his heart. When they reached the 11th floor, the two stopped. This floor was a parlor-like guest room, spacious with sofas placed all around. Inside, there was a fireplace, next to which a wall of firewood was neatly stacked. Why come here to go out? Herag was a bit puzzled about leaving the Moonlight Forest by coming upstairs. Larry smiled and explained, "Do you want to leave from the east or south road? If you want to, I won't stop you. Just be prepared for a fight once you're outside." It seems the situation is more serious than I thought. Herag's expression was grave, understanding Larry's implication. Now the outskirts of the Moonlight Forest were unsafe, and he might encounter people from the Green Cottage once he went out. So, we need a different, safer way out, the Flu Network. Larry said, walking towards the fireplace. Flu Network. It was the first time Herag heard the term. Larry explained, "It's normal that you don't know, as there are only 3 fireplaces in the entire Moonlight Forest connected to the Flu Network. The so-called Flu Network is when many wizards' fireplaces are connected to the Flu Network. By using flu powder and saying the name of the place you want to go, you can arrive there." Herag pondered, "Isn't that dangerous?" He imagined a scenario where someone suddenly emerged from one's fireplace at home. That's why wizards who dare to connect to the Flu Network have a certain level of power. If in the future you find yourself arriving at the wrong place through the Flu Network, be very careful. The Flu Network here has been registered in the Moonlight Forest, and this journey via the Flu Network has been pre-approved by the forest. Larry took a wooden box from above the fireplace. He opened the box to reveal a green powder inside. To use it, grab a handful of flu powder, stand inside the fireplace, say the name of the place you want to go, then throw the flu powder down. Your destination is called the Violet Cottage, an abandoned wooden house located in the southern Kanakani Kingdom, within a forest. After you arrive there, head south for 2 days to reach Violet City. Go further west, and you can get to the Doors Kingdom. Larry described the route he had planned for Herag. "It's simple, go ahead." Larry patted Herag on the shoulder, indicating for him to move towards the fireplace. Herag stood in the fireplace, checking to see if he had forgotten anything. Larry extended the box of flu powder towards him, and Herag grabbed a handful. It felt no different from ordinary sand. "Remember, it's Violet Cottage." Larry emphasized one last time. Herag nodded, took a deep breath, and said, "Violet Cottage." He immediately threw the flu powder downward, and instantly, a burst of green flames enveloped Herag's body. In the blink of an eye, Herag vanished from the spot. Herag felt a sudden darkness, and then it seemed as if his head and feet were reversed, as he traversed downward through a black tunnel. After a while, a white opening appeared ahead. Boom! Harag felt himself crash into a pile of clutter, causing a loud crashing sound and the sound of a wooden shelf falling to the ground. He opened his eyes and found himself inside a shabby wooden house, the floor filled with broken sofas, broken chairs, splintered wood, and other debris. The room was full of dust, seemingly stirred up by his recent crash. He glanced back and saw a large fireplace behind him, realizing he must have come from there. Cough, cough. The thick dust made Harag cough incessantly. Dark energy shield. Harag cast a shield on himself, then squeezed through the clutter, forcing a path out. With a shield enveloping him, there was no need to worry about getting scratched. After squeezing out, Harag found himself on the first floor of the wooden house. The stairs leading to the second floor had decayed and broken, with many steps already shattered. He scanned his surroundings and found the location of the main door, trying to twist it open. Carelessly, he twisted off the doorknob, feeling a bit speechless. How long has this house been uninhabited? He tried pushing the door, finding it entirely immobile, noticing the lock had rusted shut. Bam! Harag kicked the door open, stirring up another cloud of dust. He dashed out rapidly, feeling the cold sensation on his face, and saw the sky overcast with imminent rain. Looking around, he saw endless wilderness. The entire center of this wilderness was the Violet Cottage, surrounded by forest at its edges. Harag took out a map and confirmed that this was indeed the place Larry had mentioned. The position of the stars. Harag sensed the position of the stars, finding the south and starting his journey. According to Larry's instructions, he needed to walk for 2 days to get out, so he had to hurry. After spending 10 minutes crossing the wilderness, he entered the forest. While trekking through the forest, droplets fell occasionally, and Harag soon found himself wet. Using magic power to repel the rain was too extravagant. Traversing an unfamiliar forest, he dared not waste magic power casually. Harag would take out his map every so often to mark his position, adjusting his direction and route. Time to find a place to camp. Harag glanced at the sky, realizing it was almost dusk. He found a sheltered spot at the foot of a mountain, with dense trees nearby, sheltering most of the rain. Harag took out a tent from his space ring, tossed it on the ground, and the tent promptly stood up. He only needed to manually secure a few corners. It's been a long time since I last hunted. Harag could sense many animal traces in the forest, all common animals. He pulled out a fine steel bow, something he hadn't used in a long time, yet he had kept it, and now it came in handy. Harag took his bow and arrow into the forest, and soon he discovered a wild rabbit. He bent his bow and nocked an arrow, aiming at the rabbit, and in the next second, the rabbit's head was pierced through. Now, he no longer needed Shenlong's assistance to easily hit such small animals. Harag picked up the wild rabbit and found a small stream, where he took out a dagger and skillfully skinned and gutted it, quickly preparing a piece of juicy rabbit meat. At night, a dense white mist arose in the forest, and the rain intensified. Harag pulled out a rain tar from his space ring and set up a makeshift shelter under a tree, also collecting some dry wood, wild vegetables, and mushrooms nearby. He stacked the dry wood he picked up, snapped his fingers, and the pile of wood caught fire. This was a simple use of fire elemental energy particles. Since advancing to a second-class wizard apprentice, Harag could manipulate these various types of energy particles to perform some basic magic. The most commonly used was igniting with fire elemental energy particles. This simple absorption of a bit of fire elemental energy particles naturally wouldn't have any destructive power, but it was just right for everyday life. Besides that, there were plant energy particles which could accelerate wound recovery, and these plant energy particles were ubiquitous in the forest. Harag took out a wooden stick, skewered the rabbit, and roasted it over the fire, taking oil and spices from his bag. He used a brush to coat the rabbit meat layer by layer with oil, slowly grilling it, as the aroma gradually emerged, dispersing in the forest. Raindrops drummed on the shelter, making a ticking sound, and occasional small crackles came for the campfire. Harag closed his eyes slightly, occasionally turning to Rabbit. Everything seemed so peaceful and serene. The tranquil rainy night in the forest made Harag feel sleepy. But now he couldn't sleep because there were unexpected visitors. Far away, two people were approaching, and Harag listened to their footsteps drawing nearer. When the two came closer, the yellow firelight illuminated their faces. One was a middle-aged man with a big beard, wearing armor and holding a long sword in his hand, which still bore bloodstains. He looked at Harag with a solemn expression. Beside the middle-aged knight was a teenager about 16 or 17 years old, with golden hair and luxurious clothes, clearly a noble. "Hello, traveler. I am Kieran Banks from the Tassoni territory, and this is Josh Banks, the second son of the Banks family. We wonder if we could borrow some fire, and my young master is cold." The middle-aged knight, Kieran, spoke sincerely, even with a hint of supplication. Harag squinted slightly at them. "There's space, have a seat." Kieran Banks, Power 4.2, Agility 3.2, Constitution 3.9, full of unknown energy. Another great night. Harag thought of Baron Buck, oddly nostalgic. Kieran and his young master cautiously approached, their movements restrained, seemingly afraid of being misunderstood by Harag. After they sat down by the fire, Josh shivered near the flames, looking as though he'd been cold for a long time. Sizzle. The rabbit was almost done, sizzling with oil, causing sparks to fly as it dripped into the fire. Harag sat up, grasped a rabbit leg in one hand, and pulled out a dagger with the other, beginning to carve the leg. Harag felt the heat, struggled a bit to tear off the rabbit leg, then took a big bite. The rabbit meat was juicy and melted in the mouth, with a unique roasted aroma, leaving an endless aftertaste. Harag swallowed the piece of meat with satisfaction, feeling very warm. A pot hung beside the rabbit, simmering wild vegetable and mushroom soup. These wild vegetables and mushrooms were confirmed safe by Shenlong's database. After finishing the rabbit leg in a few bites, Harag lifted the lid off the pot, releasing a burst of white steam and fragrance. He took a bowl and spoon out of his space ring, served himself a bowl of soup, and blew on it, but it was still too hot to drink. Kieran's expression became more serious upon seeing him retrieve items out of thin air, looking at Harag with increased reverence. Grumble. The sound of his stomach growling interrupted, and Harag looked up, seeing it was the young noble Josh. He chuckled, ignored him, and continued blowing on his hot soup. "Sir, might we purchase some food from you? We're willing to pay," Kieran requested. Recognizing Harag as a wizard, Kieran was cautious with his words and actions, fearing to offend him. Harag looked up and said, "A rabbit is not enough for me alone, so I'm not going to sell it to you. Aren't you a great knight, capable of hunting?" Kieran saw that Harag accurately discerned his strength and showed no fear, confirming Harag's identity even more. He said somewhat ashamedly, "I hadn't considered it. Too focused on fleeing, I forgot to catch some game. Now it's raining, and I can't take my master hunting at night in the rain." "Uncle Kieran, it's not your fault. You've done well protecting me. Skipping a meal or two is fine. We'll find food tomorrow morning." Josh tried to comfort Kieran. "Here, 10 gold coins, do you want it?" Harag pulled out a thick biscuit from his space ring. 10 gold coins. Josh looked at the ordinary biscuit, then back at Harag, and immediately replied, "No. I'll give you 10,000 gold coins." Harag laughed. 10,000 gold coins? Can you carry that much? Josh explained, "Once I return to the Tassoni territory, I'll present 10,000 gold coins to you, without missing a penny." Reading Kieran's expression and actions, Josh quickly realized this person was unusual, prompting him to think of recruiting him. "I give you biscuits, and you give me promises?" Harag laughed. Unexpectedly, Josh grew a bit emotional, kneeling on one knee in the muddy ground, with his right hand over his heart. "I swear on the Banks family's honor, if we return to Markfield City in the Tassoni territory, I'll award 10,000 gold coins to you." "My name is Harag Merlin. 10,000 gold coins probably isn't just for biscuits. You want me to help solve the trouble behind you?" "Sorry, I don't like trouble." Harag shook his head, uninterested in meddling in noble power struggles. Mr. Harag, there's a misunderstanding. I have no intention of using you. You only need to ensure our safe arrival at Markfield City. Josh sincerely pleaded. Markfield City? It so happens it's on my way. If 10,000 gold coins is just for escorting you, there's no reason not to earn it. You can lead the way tomorrow. Harag recalled the map, realizing he was headed there anyway. And with these two, perhaps some matters might even become more convenient. Thank you, Mr. Harag. Josh was overjoyed. I'm just doing my job for money. Escorting for a while and getting 10,000 gold coins. Where else to find such good deals? Just hope you won't renege, or the consequences could be severe. Harag waved his hand. Rest assured, sir, I will not break my promise, Josh replied sincerely. After eating and drinking his fill, Harag crawled into his tent to sleep. Kieran used leaves to make a bowl for Josh, then served him a bowl of soup from the pot. This was deliberately left by Harag, in exchange for helping him wash the pot, as he was too lazy to do it himself. Josh didn't mind drinking the leftover soup from Harag. He took a sip and then handed the leaf-made bowl over. Uncle Kieran, you have some too. He then broke a biscuit in half and also gave half to Kieran. Kieran hesitated for a moment but didn't refuse. He hadn't eaten for 2 days either and was indeed very hungry, considering there would be battles later on. He decided to eat. Harag lay in the tent, clearly watching the scene outside. He wasn't sleeping, but rather meditating while lying down. Now, without the aid of meteor grass, he had to work harder on a meditation method. The next morning, the rain stopped, but the fog became thicker. Kieran was resting against a tree with his eyes closed, while Josh leaned on him asleep, covered with Kieran's cloak. Harag made no attempt to conceal the noise of waking up. Kieran slowly opened his eyes, first confirming Josh's condition, and feeling relieved once he ensured there was nothing wrong. With a wave of Harag's hand, the tent, rain cover, and other items on the ground were collected into the space ring. He turned to the pair under the tree and said, I'm getting ready to set off. All right. Kieran and Josh stood up obediently, following behind Harag. Harag took out a map to check the direction before setting off. Tell me about your situation, Harag casually said while walking ahead. He had to find out what trouble these two encountered and what the situation was to be prepared. I am the second son of Count Remy of Tassoni territory. A few days ago, Uncle Kieran and I went to the countryside to check on the crops. Everything was going smoothly, but on the way back, we were ambushed. Those people were obviously prepared and even had crossbows. Uncle Kieran protected me, and we fought our way out, but all the other guards were killed. Josh's tone was a bit sorrowful, seemingly angry about the guards' deaths. Do you know who did it? Harag asked offhandedly. Josh took a deep breath. Who else could it be? It must be Lucci, my elder brother. He's afraid I'll fight for his inheritance, and there's been no shortage of conflict between us over the years. Now with father getting weaker by the day, he's grown even more anxious. Oh, Harag nodded expressionlessly. There's nothing new under the sun, just the same old power struggle drama. Are there pursuers behind? This isn't considered the outskirts of the forest, Harag continued to ask. They'd still need at least a day's journey from this location to leave the forest. Kieran replied, There are people from the Thief Guild, an assassin at Great Knight level. I'm not confident I can protect young Master Josh under his hands, so we had to flee. Understood. I've already spotted him. He's watching us. Harag glanced southeast and said, What? Kieran immediately became tense. An assassination by a Great Knight level assassin. Even he couldn't say he could defend it 100%, let alone young Master Josh, who didn't have Knight level strength. What are you afraid of? Let's go. We have a journey to make, Harag said nonchalantly, looking at the two, standing nervously and looking around, slightly exasperated. Oh, okay. Kieran realized where they were. There was a powerful wizard here, so he didn't need to worry too much. The moment he saw Harag, he sensed that familiar yet mysterious aura. Great Knights don't possess magic power, but they have some sensing ability towards it. The aura on Harag was very familiar to him, as he had encountered powerful wizards with the same aura before. In the faraway forest, a bald man shivered at Harag's gaze. How did he spot me? Robert was baffled, He was a great knight-level assassin, the ace of the Thief Guild. He always had confidence in his concealment skills. Even opponents of the same level as a great knight would find it hard to see through his invisibility. But now, from over 200 meters away, that young man had instantly seen his position. How is this possible? Robert felt as though he'd seen a ghost. Most importantly, he didn't dare to make a move. From Harag's casual glance, he felt a fear emanating from the depths of his soul. His years of experience on the edge of life and death told him that if he rashly approached that man, he would certainly die. As an exceptional thief, Robert had always trusted his intuition. Can't do this job now. A pity for all those gold coins, Robert sighed, looking pained. Thinking about all those gold coins slipping away pained his heart. But pain or not, Robert made up his mind to abandon the mission, at least until that young man parted from the master-servant duo Josh. Then he would make a move. All these years, he survived by relying on his keen intuition and enough caution, with a very sharp sense of death. Given up, from Shinlan's detection, it seemed the person behind them had left and wasn't planning on continuing to pursue them. The more Robert thought about it, the more uneasy he became. The fear in his heart grew stronger the longer he tailed Harag, prompting him to decisively retreat, even abandoning continued tracking to observe the situation. That's some trouble off my back. Harag was indifferent, continuing onward. He currently had the physical abilities comparable to a great knight-level expert, not to mention various magic aids. These ordinary knight-level or great knight-level individuals were hard-pressed to pose any threat to him. Harag didn't mention that the assassin had already left, so Kieran kept his spiritual power highly focused all the way, constantly paying attention to the surroundings. Harag couldn't be bothered to remind him. More people on lookout is a good thing after all. The trio traveled until dusk, where they could see the plains at the base of the mountains from a distance. Mr. Harag, let's rest in the forest tonight. The plains area is too open, Kieran suggested. Harag nodded in agreement with his suggestion. Kieran's meaning was clear. If there's an ambush, descending would make them targets with no room for maneuver. In the forest, the terrain is complex, and even if there are enemies lying in wait, there's room to maneuver. A great knight-level expert in the forest at night could easily handle dozens of people alone, not to mention with Harag present. The peaceful night quickly passed without the imagined night attack. After the three of them exited the forest, they walked for 2 hours before finally reaching a small town. As soon as Josh arrived here, he instantly exuded the air of a superior. He found the head of the town and arranged a carriage for the three of them. There were originally a dozen sturdy militiamen, but their combat capabilities were worthless to them and were thus declined. We're about to reach Markfell City soon. It's the largest city in the Tassoni territory and also where the main members of the Tassoni family reside. Josh lifted the curtain, revealing the scenery outside, and introduced the local customs to Harag. Harag wasn't interested in these, and blandly said, "I'm only concerned if my 10,000 gold coins will be fulfilled, Master Josh." "You're joking, Mr. Harag. There won't be any shortfall in your payment. This amount is trivial for me and can be easily produced." Josh felt uneasy when he heard the address Master Josh. Good, it better be so. Harag closed his eyes and continued to rest. Markfell City was indeed very large. From a distance, you could already see the tall city walls. The city gate was also very magnificent, with a giant domed gate bustling with people and carriages. The guards at the city gate were clad in full armor, with the Tassoni family's emblem, a totem of an eagle, printed on their armor. The guards looked at the carriage from afar, with some uncertainty in their gaze. When a carriage gradually approached, the guards recognized Josh and hurried to call people over. "It's Master Josh. Master Josh has returned." Upon learning the news of Josh's return, dozens of guards were immediately deployed to escort Josh and the others back to the Tassoni family's castle. The Tassoni family's castle was located at the northernmost part of the city, with an expanse of buildings that, from a distance, made one think it was the king's palace complex. The three had already switched to a more refined and robust carriage, surrounded by layers of guarded soldiers. "These are all my personally trained loyalists. Josh said with some pride, introducing his guards to Harag. The group stopped in front of the castle, where someone was already waiting at the castle gate. A man, appearing to be around 30, with a small mustache, hurried over anxiously, looking concernedly at Josh as he got off the carriage. "Oh, Josh, thank the gods. You're back safe." Josh chuckled dismissively. "Lucci, why do I feel you're disappointed that I returned safely?" Lucci was a burly man, but now appeared very gentle, smiling. "My dear brother, what nonsense are you talking about? After learning about your ambush and disappearance, I couldn't eat or drink for a while and mobilized various powers to search for your whereabouts. Fortunately, you returned safely, so Father can also be at ease." Josh seemed to dislike his demeanor, frowning as he asked, "How is Father?" Lucci hesitated, sighing, "Not great. You should go see him." Josh nodded and turned to Kieran. "Uncle Kieran, please take Mr. Harag to rest and give him the 10,000 gold coins reward. Mr. Harag, since I just got back, I need to see my father first. I truly apologize." He slightly bowed apologetically to Harag. Harag nodded. "It's fine." Kieran walked in front, bowing and gesturing, "This way, Mr. Harag." "Who is this?" Lucci curiously looked at Harag, his eyes flickering with a peculiar light. Kieran said expressionlessly, "Master Lucci, this is Master Josh's esteemed guest. You needn't know." "I needn't know? I am the eldest son of the Tassoni family, Uncle Kieran. Since he's Josh's esteemed guest, he's my esteemed guest too. Hello, Mr. Harag. I'm Lucci Banks. If you hear any bad rumors about me, please don't take them to heart and refrain from knowing me through others' words." Ignoring Kieran, Lucci stepped in front of Harag, introducing himself respectfully and courteously. "Hello, Harag Merlin." Harag nodded, casually responding. "Mr. Harag, if you don't mind, how about I show you around this castle?" Lucci asked expectantly. Harag smiled. "I won't be staying here long, and I have no interest in your Tassoni family's matters, so you needn't bother." Lucci burst into hearty laughter, cheerfully saying, "Mr. Harag is quite interesting. It's all the more reason for me to entertain you well as the host." Kieran blocked him. "Master Lucci, let me handle it." Lucci smiled insincerely. "Since Uncle Kieran insists, I won't say more." He apologetically turned to Harag. "I hope Mr. Harag won't find it awkward. My brother has been possessive since childhood, always worried I'll take his things, ha ha ha." Kieran ignored the sarcasm in his words, turning respectfully to Harag. "Please follow me, Mr. Harag." As Harag passed by Lucci, he offered Harag a helpless smile. "Could Mr. Harag stay overnight, allowing us, the Banks family, to express our gratitude?" Kieran inquired. Of course. Harag wasn't in a hurry to travel. His current purpose was to understand the local customs while traveling. Larry had tasked him to find moonstone grass in the Doris Kingdom. There was no time limit on this task, allowing him to return whenever he wanted. Kieran led Harag to a grand palace, ornately decorated inside. Upon entering, a gigantic painting, standing 40 to 50 meters tall, of a pot-bellied middle-aged man, caught their eye. "This is Count Huan, the biological father of Masters Josh and Lucci," Kieran introduced. Harag asked with interest, "The two brothers, are they born from different mothers?" "Yes," Kieran replied concisely. Harag nodded without further comment. After glancing at the painting, he continued following Kieran forward. The decorations inside could only be described as luxurious, and Harag noticed many of the wall carvings were made of gold and gems. Picking off a random gem could be worth thousands of gold coins. This Count's family is indeed too wealthy. No wonder the two brothers fight tooth and nail. The palace itself showcased the tremendous wealth of the Banks family, far beyond ordinary imagination. "Mr. Harag can stay here tonight. All the guards and servants are at your service. No one will disturb you." Kieran led Harag to a giant door. Kieran exerted himself, and the door slowly opened, revealing a vast space behind it. Harag estimated that the room behind the door was about 500 or 600 square meters. Inside, there was a large bed that could easily accommodate 6 or 7 people. Meanwhile, heavy footsteps could be heard outside the door as two guards struggled to carry in a golden treasure chest. The guards brought the chest into the room and placed it in front of Harag and Kieran. "You may leave," Kieran instructed. The two guards bowed their heads and quickly exited, never once lifting their eyes to look at Harag. "This is the 10,000 gold coins promised by Master Josh. Mr. Harag, please check it." Kieran opened the golden chest, revealing a full box of shimmering gold coins. Harag smiled and said, "Not bad." He beckoned with his hand and took the entire box. This box exceeded 10,000 gold coins, and just the box itself was quite valuable. "Mr. Harag, you may rest here for a moment. If you'd like to go for a stroll, you can call upon the servant by the door. There will be a grand banquet tonight," Kieran continued. Harag, not being polite, turned and lay down on the soft, large bed. "All right," Kieran respectfully retreated, gently closing the door and carefully instructing the two maids at the door. The Violet Kingdom truly deserves its title as the largest kingdom in the south. "Even a count here is so wealthy," Harag remarked. On the map, T'Soni territory seemed small, and Harag never expected the lord here to be so wealthy. Harag stayed in the room without wandering around, planning his subsequent route before starting to meditate. Until nightfall, a maid came and knocked on the door. "Mr. Harag, it's time to attend the banquet." The two maids at the door were very young and dressed revealingly, causing Harag to look twice at the expanse of white skin. Lead the way," Harag said softly, casually touching a few areas. The two maids just lowered their heads and smiled without any resistance. After Harag stopped, the two maids led the way, guiding Harag through palace after palace. Sometimes, having such a big house isn't a good thing. "It takes half an hour just to reach the dining hall," Harag complained somewhat speechlessly. Though the castle was large, there weren't many people. On his way, Harag mainly saw guards and servants. The banquet was held in the largest palace, and there weren't many attendees. Harag roughly counted, finding only over 60 people excluding servants and guards, which was quite few for an aristocratic banquet. Harag finally saw the person from the giant painting, Count Hu-In Banks, who was seated at the head of the long table, with his sons Josh and Lucci on either side, followed by other children and relatives. "Mr. Harag," Josh exclaimed excitedly upon seeing Harag. He had changed into an extravagant suit for the banquet, looking noticeably bulkier. Count Hu-In turned to look at Harag after hearing this, rising and smiling. "Thank you, Mr. Harag, for saving my son. The Banks family will forever remember your kindness." Harag was seated below the main seat, and the banquet was quiet as everyone ate in silence. After a simple meal, the usual dance session followed, but Harag wasn't particularly interested. Count Hu-In and his sons came over with drinks again to express their gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Harag." Harag clinked glasses with them, his nose twitching slightly, as if sensing something. After finishing his drink, he asked, "Is Count Hu-In injured?" Josh said excitedly, 2 months ago, my father was assassinated. Though the assassin failed, my father was left with serious injuries that haven't healed. Mr. Harag, do you have a way?" "I'm not sure if there's a way, but I do smell something familiar." Harag sniffed again, detecting the scent of dark energy particles. Josh, growing more excited, promptly said to Count Hu-In, "Father, why not let Mr. Harag take a look? The crowd here is too large and nosy. Let's discuss this elsewhere." Count Hu-In considered for a moment and nodded in agreement, and they moved to a quieter room next door. Lucci followed, seemingly also worried about his father's injuries. Great night, Kieran stood guard at the door, apparently determined not to let anyone else in. Harag pulled up a chair and sat down, slowly savoring the red wine in his glass. He had heard of this wine before. It was far beyond his means to afford. "Mr. Harag, can you save my father?" Josh asked eagerly. Harag set down his glass. "I can't say if I can save him until I see what the injury is like." "Father." Josh looked at his father with an inquiring glance. Count Hu-In hesitated, laboriously removing his outer clothing. After a great effort, he removed 2 layers to reveal the injury on his waist. There was a black wound there. Although medicine had been applied to the wound surface, it still exuded a faint rotten smell. I didn't expect the Count's injury to be this severe. Harag moved closer to observe, confirming that it was caused by demonized items. The wound was entangled with dark energy particles, preventing it from healing, rendering ordinary medicine ineffective. Count Huin smiled bitterly. I wasn't long for this world anyway. A few days ago, Josh had disappeared. Now that Josh has returned safely, I can leave in peace. Father, Josh clutched Huin's clothing tightly. Harag curiously said, Leave? It's just a minor injury. A minor injury? Mr. Harag, do you really have a solution? The entire Huin family looked at him in astonishment. They had sought countless renowned doctors, none of whom could do anything for Count Huin's injuries. They even considered seeking legendary mystics, but lacked the means to contact them. How could an ordinary mystic be specially called to treat a minor count? I can treat it. What are you willing to pay? I charge a lot for my services. The Banks family was wealthy, and Harag wouldn't miss this chance to make a fortune. He had no qualms about taking money from such aristocrats. Count Huin pondered for a while. It wasn't that he was stingy. He was contemplating what would be most suitable to offer. He already knew Harag was a legendary mystic, so he needed to offer something that would satisfy him. But what could possibly satisfy a wizard? Simple money? Wizards don't seem to lack money, and carrying such a large amount is inconvenient. Beauties? That's worthless. Count Huin thought for a while, continuously shaking his head, finally saying, Mr. Harag, if you can heal me, the Banks family treasury will be open to you, and you may choose any 3 treasures you like. Treasure vault? Harag asked with some interest. Does your treasure vault have any good items? Of course. Baron Huin was quite proud, having great confidence in his own treasure vault. Harag mused. Then, I hope your treasure vault can satisfy me. His words were rather blunt. Though wizards couldn't slaughter regular folk en masse, killing a few was still overlooked. Count Huin nodded nervously, but then, thinking of the numerous treasures in the vault, gained some confidence. It should satisfy him, he thought. Harag extended his hand, placing it above Count Huin's wound. The dark energy particles in the wound began to disperse, and Harag slowly absorbed these energy particles. Huin felt an odd sensation. The wound seemed a little better, less itchy and painful. Since Harag was paid for his services, he didn't settle for half measures, meticulously absorbing all the dark energy particles from the wound, leaving none behind. Josh and the others stood quietly to the side, observing the process of Harag treating Count Huin's injuries. Though they didn't understand what was being done, they could see the blackness on the wound gradually reducing. They had always assumed the black stuff to be toxins and had never figured out what it was, unable to eradicate it. Half an hour later, Harag withdrew his hand. The Count's wound is now fine. Proceed with normal treatment for external injuries. Huin's wound showed no trace of blackness, revealing red flesh with some blood seeping out. The castle's doctor quickly arrived to reapply medication and bandage Count Huin's wound. Even though Harag had some white sage healing potion, it was too wasteful to use on a noble like this. After the doctor finished treating the wound, Count Huin heaved a sigh of relief, visibly looking better and with a bit more color in his face. Harag held a certain admiration for Count Huin, considering he was just an ordinary person. The dark energy particles were no boon to ordinary people. Having such stuff in the wound was indeed torturous. Harag had just caught a whiff of anesthesia from the wound, likely used for pain relief. Huin, leaning back in his chair, exhaled comfortably and, after a sigh, said, Thanks to Mr. Harag, I feel much better. Now it's time for me to fulfill my promise. He stood up. With great might, Kieran immediately stepping forward to support him. Mr. Harag, this way, please. Huin led the way. Josh and Lucci sensibly did not follow, as the treasure vault seemed not an area they could casually enter. Huin personally led Harag all the way down to the 3rd basement level of the castle. In front of a massive, heavy iron door stood 2 night level guards, both clad in heavy full-body armor. Huan pulled out a wooden box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a bronze key inside. He took the key to the iron door, inserted it, and gently twisted. Sounds of countless mechanical gears turning came from behind the door. Click! With a light sound, the door slowly opened on its own, revealing the passageway beyond. You stand guard here, let no one inside, Huan instructed the two night-level guards. He turned to Harag, saying, Mr. Harag, please. Beyond the door stretched a long passageway, lit by oil lamps. Harag followed behind, Huan for a distance, coming to another door. This door was smaller, yet made of some metal too, appearing very sturdy. Huan reached into his shirt, and only then did Harag notice the small key hanging from his neck. Huan used this key to open the smaller door. As soon as the door opened, Harag was greeted by a sight of golden splendor. Entering the treasure vault, Harag was stupefied. The enormous storeroom was filled with gold, jewelry, and numerous antique vases, paintings, and the like. Harag even spotted a colossal coral reef. At this moment, Huan was spirited, introducing the treasures to Harag enthusiastically. These are the treasures accumulated by the bank's family over the years. There are many items, even I don't know when they came into the vault. Mr. Harag, as a great mystic, ordinary riches might not catch your eye. Feel free to look around and see if there's anything you need. Harag nodded and walked ahead. The vault was as large as a football field, cluttered with various treasures, making him dizzy with delight, not knowing where to start. This armor set is... Harag spotted a suit of full armor in the corner. The material of the armor was special, and he couldn't determine what it was made of. More importantly, the armor seemed to have some magic resistance effects. He infused a little magic power into it and was met with resistance. This reminded Harag of Dino's ship, which was built from wood from the Forbidden Magic Forest, also possessing magic resistance, though this armor's effect was somewhat weaker. This is the armor of legendary knight Goodman's Graph, reputed to have many mysterious effects. Great Knight Goodman was a legendary figure over 300 years ago. His armor is certainly extraordinary. If Mr. Harag is interested, he may take it, Huan introduced as he noticed Harag's gaze on the armor. Harag touched the armor and shook his head. I'll look around some more. This armor didn't hold much significance for him, as he wouldn't typically wear such heavy armor. If it was for defense techniques, a dark energy shield would be more practical for him. As Harag continued forward, he suddenly stopped after a distance, spotting a pair of eyes. It was a pair of eyes submerged in a glass jar, appearing like a specimen. The eyes were bright red, and they seemed to be staring at Harag, giving him a slight discomfort. What is this? Harag recognized the shape of the eyes and felt he had seen related information in a book. Shenlong, what is this? He directly asked Shenlong. Based on the search, the probability that these are eyes of the Kalutar race is 98.34%. The Kalutar race was a species residing in the remote mountainous regions of the Kala continent, whose eyes turned crimson when emotionally agitated. This color was regarded as one of the world's 7 great beauties. Many nobles offered high prices for such red eyes, leading to the massacre of the Kalutar race, currently extinct. Shenlong replied with detailed information, and Harag, seeing this information, remembered that these eyes were also rare magic potion materials. Although he didn't need them at the moment, they could be useful in the future. Given they were extinct, it wouldn't hurt to hold on to them. This thing is not bad. I'll keep it for now and decide later if I want it. Harag pointed at the crimson eye. Huan nodded with a smile and said, Mr. Harag has a keen eye, immediately spotting this now extinct Kalutar race eye. Seeing Harag choose this made him very happy because this item wasn't very valuable. Only some nobles who collected human body parts would buy such things. Ordinary people couldn't appreciate nor like them. Kalutar race eyes were only popular among nobles 200 years ago. At that time, nobles were infatuated with this crimson color, which made the price of Kalutar eyes extremely high. Only the great nobles had the means to purchase and admire them. But now this thing is no longer in vogue, and naturally the price has gone down too. As for the matter of a race disappearing because of this, no one cared, nor would anyone speak up for them. Wizards' hobbies are indeed quite special. Huan found this matching his imagination of wizards. Herag continued to walk forward, noting down some things he liked along the way, planning to compare after looking at everything to decide which 3 items he wanted. This necklace is quite beautiful. As Herag wandered, he saw a necklace. A huge blue gemstone was hanging from it, with 2 flowers sculpted in gold on top, inlaid with more than a dozen smaller gems. When Huan saw this necklace, he hesitated for a moment, but then smiled and said, "This is the famous Queen Milani's necklace, known as the Heart of the Ocean, a necklace countless women dream of." Queen Milani was very famous. Even Herag had read related histories. Queen Milani was the queen of an ancient kingdom 1,000 years ago, extremely beautiful, renowned as the greatest beauty of the North. To this day, her portraits are sold at exorbitant prices, with many great nobles spending lavishly at auctions to acquire them. "I didn't expect her necklace to be here with you. Is it real?" Herag questioned. Startled by Herag's imposing manner, Huan quickly said, "Yes, it's real. My father acquired it at a great cost when he was young." "All right, this is also good." Herag planned to give this as a gift to Lillian. After all, he had previously taken so many things from Lillian without payment, he should return some gifts. Huan felt a bit of pain, but he couldn't take back the words he had spoken. After all, the person in front of him was a wizard. It was already good fortune not being robbed of more by him, let alone daring to go back on his word. The Violet Kingdom is under the protection of the wizard organization, and generally, wizards do not trouble these great nobles. But if Herag bullied him a little, Huan would have no one to complain to. Unless Herag completely looted his possessions, the higher-ups of the kingdom wouldn't bother reporting to the wizard organization for him. Herag naturally noticed the flash of pain on Huan's face, smiled, and continued exploring the treasure trove. Most were just ordinary treasures. After wandering for a while, Herag discovered a peculiar item. A pink doll lay quietly atop a pile of gold, made of ordinary cloth material. In the treasure trove filled with treasures, such a cloth doll stood out starkly, incongruous with everything around it. Herag's expression became somewhat solemn. Shenlong analyzed this doll, comparing with the database. After comparison, the doll is most likely a resentful doll, a top casting material for many high-level curse magic. Shenlong quickly provided the result. Herag frowned. "I didn't expect it to be this thing. No wonder there are so many negative energy particles." From afar, he could sense the negative energy particles entwining around the resentful doll and the intense malice. This item is a top casting material for high-level curse magic. What's termed high-level curse magic refers to level 1 spells used by official wizards. The resentful doll is exceptionally rare and almost impossible to artificially create, only forming in certain special places. Such places generally harbor many casting materials, magic potion materials, and are invaluable to every wizard. However, such places generally also present certain dangers, depending on the specific circumstances. "Where did you get this thing?" Herag asked as he held the resentful doll. This item isn't something ordinary people could come into contact with. Herag hadn't expected it to appear in a regular noble's treasure trove. "This?" Huan stuttered as he looked at the resentful doll. "I'm asking you, where did you get it?" Herag impatiently asked again. Huan stammered, "This doll is an ominous object. Mr. Herag best not take it." "You keep an ominous object in a treasure trove? I know better than you what this is. Tell me where it came from." Herag continued to inquire. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, Huan said, "This doll was brought by a thief, said to have mysterious powers, so I bought it and kept it in the treasure trove, nearly forgetting about it." "A thief? What's his name? Where is he?" Herag sensed that Huan wasn't telling everything, so he continued to ask. "His name is Robert, a Grand Knight level thief. I don't know exactly where he is now. You can ask at the Adventurers Association. He's quite famous." Fearful that the situation wasn't simple, Huin quickly spilled everything he knew like beans from a bamboo tube. A grand night-level thief? Harag suddenly thought of the thief who'd been following him the other day. Perhaps it was the same person. There couldn't be two grand night-level thieves appearing so shortly. Understood. Harag nodded. I'll take this doll, the Heart of the Ocean necklace, and the Crimson Eye. After speaking, he put away the resentful doll, then started to head back, picking up the Heart of the Ocean necklace and the Crimson Eye. Huin followed behind with a forced smile, not daring to express any opinion. Harag was merely informing him, not negotiating with him. After selecting the three items, Harag left the treasure trove, with Huin struggling behind him to push the door shut. Even that modest-looking door seemed heavier than it appeared, with Huin's face turning red as he barely managed to close it. As Huin closed the small door, he wiped his sweat and gasped for breath, quickening his steps to catch up with Harag before he got too far away. The outermost layer's main door didn't require his personal effort. Two night-level guards stood by to close it. Seeing Huin anxiously closing doors, Harag found it somewhat amusing, as Huin seemed very afraid that he would loot his treasure trove. Harag, though tempted, still maintained reason. The Violet Kingdom falls under the jurisdiction of the Aluf Swamp, which is also a powerful wizard organization. The strength of these nobles shouldn't be underestimated. If he truly went overboard, they could certainly contact the Aluf Swamp, and he'd be in trouble, as it was someone else's territory. Causing trouble wasn't sensible. Mr. Harag, will you continue to the late-night banquet or? Huin caught up and asked with his head lowered. Harag stretched lazily. I'm going back to rest. I won't be attending the banquet any longer. All right, then I wish Mr. Harag a good rest. Huin nodded and smiled. When Harag returned to his lodging in the palace, he found the two maids still waiting at the door. Does the master need a bath? The maid asked with her head lowered. A bath? Harag realized it had been days since he'd last bathed, and nodded. Yes, you can go prepare it. Yes. A maid responded softly, and then withdrew to make the preparations. The room Harag stayed in had a large bathtub, which should be quite comfortable for soaking. Shortly after the maid left, she returned to report at the door. Sir, the water is being prepared. It will be ready shortly. Harag nodded and lay down on the bed. In this world, taking a bath was quite troublesome. It required boiling water on site and carrying buckets of it to the bathtub. There were no water pipes or anything like that. After more than half an hour, strong guards came with wooden buckets. Steam was rising from the hot water inside, indicating it had just come off the boil. After pouring the hot water into the bathtub, the guards returned with 2 buckets of cold water. After pouring 1 bucket, one of them said, Sir, please check if the temperature is suitable. If it's too hot, we'll add more cold water. Harag walked to the bathtub, dipped his hand in to check the water temperature, and remarked, It's about right. You can leave now. The guards quickly retreated, but the 2 maids remained. Harag turned back. What are you still standing there for? The maids lowered their heads. We're here to serve you during the bath, sir. Harag laughed. I know. What I meant was, why are you still standing? Take off your clothes. The 2 maids exchanged a glance, a slight blush on their faces, and then slowly began to undress. Harag knew they misunderstood him, but he didn't stop them. The next morning, Harag pushed aside the fair arms draped over him and got up to dress. It's fine once in a while, but I can't live like a decadent noble, Harag thought after getting up, then meditated for a while to calm his mind and dispel many stray thoughts. After leaving the room, he immediately saw Huin and his 3 sons outside the palace. Mr. Harag is awake. Did you rest well last night? Huin asked with a smile. Not bad, Harag nodded. Huin smiled. That's good to hear. Oh, and Mr. Harag, I'm feeling much better now. The wound has healed a lot. It was difficult before. It's just a superficial wound now. It won't take long to heal completely, Harag remarked. Thank you, Mr. Harag, for saving my father. Josh is very grateful. Josh expressed gratefully. Harag glanced at the sky and said, I need to go out. I'll be leaving in a couple of days, so I won't bother you for long. Huin quickly replied, Mr. Harag, it's no bother at all. We're more than happy to have you here. If possible, please stay longer, and we'll provide whatever you need. By the way, where's Mr. Harag going? Maybe I can help." He promptly offered assistance, as it was rare for something in Markfield City to be beyond his reach. All right, I was planning to visit the Adventurers Association, Harag thought, realizing who might be able to help. The Adventurers Association? Was Mr. Harag planning to do there? Huyen felt a vague sense of foreboding. "I'm planning to find that thief named Robert and ask him some questions," Harag said casually. Huyen laughed. "Such a small matter shouldn't trouble Mr. Harag. Don't worry. I'm well acquainted with the people at the Adventurers Association. I'll just have to talk to them. But be prepared. Robert is quite elusive and may not be in Markfield City." "No problem. I just need to know where he is." Harag decided to find this Grand Knight-level thief to ask some questions. Huyen nodded with a playful smile. "I'll go inquire for Mr. Harag right away. Then I'll wait for your news." Harag turned back into the room, preparing to continue his meditation practice. The reason he wanted to find Robert was simple. He wanted to ask about the origin of the resentful doll. He needed to know where it came from to make future plans. If Harag guessed correctly, the source of the resentful doll wouldn't just have one type of casting material. There must be other valuable things there. However, such a place might also harbor dangers that needed to be assessed carefully after gathering more information. Count Huyen was very efficient. Within just an hour, he personally came to report back. "Not in Markfield City?" Harag asked, casually popping a grape into his mouth. Huyen wiped sweat from his forehead. "Yes, I just consulted the chairman of Markfield City's Adventurers Association. Robert went out a couple of days ago." "Where did he go?" Harag inquired. "The information suggests he's on a mission in Storm City, tasked with protecting a noble," Huyen explained. Storm City. Harag recalled the map and realized it was south of Markfield City, outside the jurisdiction of the Tassoni territory. "It's under Duke Theodore's domain. If Mr. Harag plans to go, I can write you a letter of introduction," Huyen offered. Harag gave him a sidelong glance and smiled. "Sure, write me the introduction letter. I'll set off right away." "Now?" So urgently. Count Huyen was quite surprised. "I don't have much to do here. If I delay, I might lose track of Robert." Harag decisively began packing his belongings. Seeing Harag's determination to leave, Huyen remarked, "I'll arrange it for Mr. Harag immediately." Huyen quickly got Harag a carriage and a robust coachman. He had also arranged for the two maids who served Harag the previous night. "No need for the maids. I'm not going out for leisure," Harag refused, having no time to take care of them, nor could he cast them aside once he was tired of them. For nobles, these maids were just property. Staying in the castle ensured a secure life. Outside, once leaving Harag, they lacked even basic survival skills. Count Huyen originally planned to arrange a bunch of guards, but Harag thought about it and refused. The symbolic significance of these guards was greater than their actual function. If he could handle it himself, he didn't need them, and if he couldn't, these guards would be of no use either. Moreover, within the territory of the Banks family, few bandits dared to attack their carriages, making the presence of guards somewhat redundant. Harag finally left only the driver, someone to navigate the roads, allowing him to have some peace of mind. "Mr. Harag." Josh hesitated to speak. Harag was about to board the carriage, turned around and smiled. "Your father can live for a long time yet. There should be not much trouble now." If the dark energy particles in Count Huyen weren't removed, he indeed wouldn't have long to live, and these two brothers would surely wage a great battle for power and profit. Now, Count Huyen can live for at least another few decades, so there's no need for the brothers to fight to the death. They can comfortably be noble scions. Josh seriously nodded. "Take care, Mr. Harag." Harag's carriage was evidently prepared meticulously by Huyen. Inside was a spacious bed covered in soft silk, allowing for comfortable rest during the journey. Behind the bed, there was a cabinet on the wall, with bottles of red wine inside. Food and other supplies were stacked in the latter half of the carriage, plenty for Harag and the driver to enjoy. The driver's name was Sid, 19 years old. He appeared to be a clever young lad. The carriage's exterior was luxuriously adorned. Especially the emblem of the Banks family was quite prominent, prompting pedestrians on the street to quickly dodge aside, afraid to approach. Harag lay inside the carriage, silently meditating. The seventh star in his mind was slowly forming. Harag completed his meditation practice leisurely every day without urgency, until finding a method to effectively speed up meditation. Such things cannot be rushed. 2 hours later, Harag slowly opened his eyes. He stroked his chin thoughtfully. It is estimated that it will take another 3 months to complete the meditation of this star, and based on this calculation, it will take more than a year to meet the promotion requirements for a third-class wizard apprentice. This body is 15 years old. I need to advance to an official wizard before 18. Most official wizards are promoted before 18. If it exceeds 18, the probability of promotion to an official wizard is quite small. Harag temporarily didn't understand the principle. All he could do was to improve his strength as soon as possible and let his spiritual power meet the standard early. Shanlan, search for methods to accelerate meditation or enhance spiritual power. Searching. 165 methods found. Harag looked at the long list and continued to give instructions. Filter for methods with no side effects, suitable for me, and achievable at this stage. 1. Formulate magic potions to assist meditation, accelerating meditation speed. 2. Formulate magic potions to increase spiritual power, more quickly meeting promotion requirements. Shenlong provided 2 methods that seemed feasible at this stage. Harag continued to ask, is there a formula for a magic potion to accelerate meditation? The formula requires research, and the main body needs to experiment and verify. Then simulate the formula for a potion to speed up meditation. How long will it take? Task has been archived, expected to take 6 hours, estimated to consume 19% magic power. Harag was a bit surprised. It actually takes so long. He didn't expect Shenlong to take 6 hours to complete this task. This task involves multiple data calculations and simulations, so it will take longer, Shenlong explained. Harag planned to let Shenlong complete this task first before simulating the formula for a potion to increase spiritual power, but he didn't have much hope. Existing potion formulas can also increase spiritual power, but their price wasn't something Harag could consider now. Magic potions that can directly increase spiritual power are very expensive. Harag didn't think Shenlong could create a cheap version. 3 hours later, the speed of the carriage began to slow down. They had already left the city, traveling through desolate countryside for a long time. Sid, sitting in the carriage head, said, "My lord, I remember there's a village ahead. We can rest there tonight." Harag lightly responded. Staying overnight in populated places never goes wrong. In deserted areas, anything might happen. The carriage slowly came to a stop. Sid lifted the curtain, bowed his head, and said, "My lord, we're here." Harag got off the carriage. Ahead was a dilapidated village, houses all made of piled-up earth, resembling caves inhabited by primitive people. Most people in the village hid in their houses, peeking through doors or windows, quietly observing Harag and Sid. At the village's entrance stood an elder with grayed hair, who, upon seeing Harag disembark, trembled and knelt. "Spare us, my lord. We will pay the taxes we owe as soon as possible. We truly can't gather any money now. Please grant us some more time." Harag glanced at him and said, "I am not here to collect taxes. I am merely passing through and plan to stay here for the night. Please excuse the disturbance." "Not here for that." The elder laboriously lifted his head, straining to observe the carriage. "But on the carriage, it clearly is." Sid explained at this point. "Harag is a guest of our bank's family, merely passing through today." Only then did the old man realize he might indeed have misunderstood, letting go of some weight in his heart. "Bring out your best food. My lord is weary from travel, and prepare the best room for my lord to rest," Sid ordered unceremoniously. The elder looked troubled but dared not defy, quietly saying, "I will prepare it right away." Harag looked at the impoverished village and thought to himself, what could they possibly prepare? He reached out to stop the elder. "No need. We have enough food ourselves. From what I've seen, You probably don't have any suitable places here either. I'll rest in the carriage tonight, so we won't disturb you further. This, Sid was surprised, considered such arrangements quite natural. Unexpected that Harag intended to sleep on the carriage. He had thought of selecting a pretty girl from these peasants to send to Harag in the evening. Harag gave him a stern look. We are only staying here for the night. Don't cause an uproar among them. I prefer quietness. Seeing Harag's slightly threatening gaze, Sid bowed and said, Understood, my lord. Harag did not think of himself as a savior, nor could he offer any help to these peasants. This was a societal issue that he alone could not change. But he couldn't bring himself to absorb the blood of these starving, skin-and-bones peasants when he had food to satisfy himself. Harag didn't even enter the village. He started settling down at a flat spot near the village entrance. He took a pot and stove from the carriage, sending Sid to find some firewood nearby, then skillfully lit a fire and started cooking. In front of Sid, Harag snapped his fingers and a flame sprang to life, making Sid widen his eyes in awe and regard Harag with even more reverence. Count Huin had generously provided supplies, including cured meat, butter, cheese, and a variety of vegetables. Harag made a stew with these ingredients. With spices, it was bound to taste decent no matter what. Here, serve yourself as much as you want to eat, Harag said, handing Sid a bowl from the carriage. Sid was flattered and hastily replied, Sir, I can just eat dry rations. If I tell you to eat, then you eat. Don't make me repeat myself, Harag said impatiently. Sid nodded. Thank you, sir. Carefully, he used a fork to spear a piece of meat and some vegetables from the pot, then squatted by the carriage to eat. Harag devoured the entire pot of meat and vegetables. His body was growing ever stronger, and his appetite was increasing. The aroma of the meal wafted into the village. Many villagers smelled it, but didn't dare come closer, fearing they might anger the prominent person by the carriage. Harag had no intention of distributing food, as the supplies were for the rest of the journey, and a shortage would only cause problems later. He had been in this world long enough to understand many issues stemmed from the era and society, and he didn't have the power to change things. Several hours later, as Harag was lying reading, the sound of Shenlon's enhancement beeped up. Task completed. The formula for accelerating main meditation speed potion has been calculated. Ingredients are as follows. 100 milliliters of pure water, 30 milliliters of mist tree man juice, 10 grams of dragon's toothgrass powder, 3 drops of poisonous violet juice, 9 grams of dragon's bloodgrass powder, 5 drops of mandala juice. Harag looked at the formula, contemplating the characteristics of these materials' interactions. He couldn't experiment at the moment and would have to wait until he had the chance to verify the effects later. Shenlon, infer a magic potion formula for increasing spiritual power. Task filed, expected time 6 hours and 30 minutes. Estimated magic power consumption 21%. After issuing the command, Harag continued to read, with an oil lamp burning inside the carriage, casting a dim light. Only the sound of insects could be heard outside the carriage, with no human noise. The village lay deathly still, as if everyone knew an important person was at the entrance that night and dared not disturb him. The next morning at dawn, Harag ended his meditation early, then kicked Sid, who was sleeping beside the carriage, awake, informing him to proceed. Harag didn't want to linger in that place, feeling that just standing there put immense pressure on the villagers, making the atmosphere very oppressive. There was a small stove fixed to the floor of the carriage. Harag lit it to brew a pot of coffee. The stove was cleverly designed, with a conduit leading outside the carriage to vent smoke. Harag still opened the carriage window as a precaution. After finishing these tasks, Harag waited for the coffee to brew while continuing to read the spell model book of the Dark Energy Shield. Soon after, the Shenlon inferred magic potion formula for increasing spiritual power was completed. Task completed. The formula for increasing spiritual power potion has been calculated. Ingredients are as follows. 100 milliliters of pure water, 50 grams of star crystal, 5 grams of black-edged sunflower powder, 4 drops of hallucinogenic herb essential oil. Harag frowned. These materials are not simple. It seems Shenlong's inferences are still very costly. He thought for a moment and decided to put the formula aside, as the recipes provided by Shenlong might not be correct, and they required experimental verification. However, these materials were too expensive, and the experimental costs were high. He didn't have the money for experiments at the moment. 6 days later, the carriage arrived at Storm City's territory. Along the way, Harag encountered 2 attempts to intercept him, both by destitute victims of famine trying to rob him because they couldn't find food. The local lords didn't care about their lives, so they had no choice but to resort to robbery on the roads. Harag didn't make things difficult for them. He performed a simple magic, and the destitute victims fell to their knees in pleas. More interestingly, the local lords warmly welcomed Harag, clearly having gotten word that an important person was passing through. Harag looked at the table full of food and drink, remembering the starving, skin-and-bone refugees, and shook his head helplessly. After entering Storm City's territory, patrol soldiers could be visibly seen, armed to the teeth. Harag was soon stopped for the first time, but passed through smoothly. The bank's family crest on the carriage served as an excellent identity proof, not to mention that Harag had 2 letters of introduction written by Count Huan. One letter was for Duke Theodore of Storm City, and the other for the president of the Adventurers Association in Storm City. Harag didn't plan to find Duke Theodore. The letter was just to reduce potential trouble at critical moments. His main objective was to find the Adventurers Association president, and then find Robert to inquire about some matters. After half a day of riding, Harag finally saw Storm City in the distance. It was a city even grander than Markfield City, with taller and thicker walls. Most importantly, the city had a sense of ruggedness and history, making one feel instantly like they could see the rich history in the walls. "Where to first, sir?" Sid asked after passing the gate guard's inspection. "I heard from Huin that your family has a base here." Harag inquired. Before coming, Huin mentioned that Harag could settle at the bank's family base in Storm City, at least to have a place to stay initially. Sid nodded. "Yes, the family business has assets here." Harag said, "Then let's settle down first, and then head to the Adventurers Association." "All right." Sid eagerly drove the carriage forward. He had been in a good mood since arriving in Storm City. The bank's family had a diverse business in Storm City, including taverns, casinos, inns, an herb shop, a blacksmith shop, and more. The carriage stopped at a place called Bank's Inn, and soon an attendant came out, leading the horses to the backyard for proper feeding. Harag's room was swiftly arranged. It was the largest and best room available. "Do you know where the Adventurers Association is?" Harag asked after securing the room key. Sid hastily answered, "Yes, I've often come to Storm City to handle business for the master and young master, so I'm very familiar with it." "Good. You lead the way," Harag nodded. The horse of the carriage had already been swapped for a strong, tall stallion. The once luxurious and extravagant carriage of the bank's family didn't stand out much on the streets of Storm City, as such carriages were a common sight, many even more ornately decorated. The headquarters of the Adventurers Association in Storm City had a 5-story building, with the first floor serving as the quest hall, bustling with people dressed as adventurers coming and going. "I wonder how Emil and the others are doing." Harag recalled that Emil had also become an adventurer, supporting Jimmy and the others by taking on various tasks. Back when he settled in the Moonlight Forest, he had written a letter. However, it was destined to be a long time before Emil could receive it, as the letter needed to cross vast oceans and wait for a ship to pass by Colson Continent to be delivered. It might encounter various accidents along the way, and the letter could possibly never arrive. Given the time, Emil's child should have been born by now, and I'm still his godfather. Harag felt somewhat sentimental as he remembered these matters. Malcolm. Harag thought of this person again, astonished that Malcolm, even in the Green Cottage, was a well-known level 1 wizard with formidable strength. Baron Buck falling into the hands of such a person was unfortunate, resulting in the annihilation of the entire family, leaving only Emil as a survivor. Conduct like Malcolm's on Kala Continent would surely be stopped, but on Colson Continent, there's no one to manage it, leaving him to act lawlessly. Harag, of course, wasn't foolish enough to stand up and protest against Malcolm's massacre of ordinary people, as without sufficient strength, he could only avoid Malcolm. As soon as Harag entered the hall, he attracted many people's attention. The hall had many adventurers, and night-level experts were a common sight. Harag's naturally emanating powerful aura instinctively made these adventurers wary, adding a touch of apprehension towards him. Sid proactively sought out the staff of the Adventurers Association, and soon he returned with a blonde-haired man. "Sir, this is Milo Kaler, Vice President of the Adventurers Association of Storm City," Sid introduced. Milo nodded, extended his hand, and said, "Greetings, esteemed guest. I'm a vice president here. You can speak to me about any matters you have." Harag took out Count Huen's letter of introduction. "This is Count Huenbank's letter of introduction. Oh, it's addressed to the president, but the president is not present in Storm City at the moment. Since it's a letter of introduction, it's all right for me to look at it. I am temporarily handling all of the president's affairs." Milo took the letter, opened it, examined it carefully, and after verifying the signature, nodded. "Mr. Harag, please head upstairs, as there are too many people and eyes here." Milo invited Harag upstairs to discuss matters. The second floor was Milo, the vice president's office, where Sid stopped at the doorway, standing as a guard. After pouring Harag a glass of water, Milo said, "Mr. Harag, are you a mystic?" "Yes, that's correct," Harag nodded. Milo smiled and said, "Mr. Harag, please don't misunderstand. According to Duke Theodore's regulations, if mystics enter the city, we are required to register them." "Understood. I am aware of the rule." Harag knew the regulation. For ordinary people, these wizards were too dangerous, and most large cities had similar regulations. However, generally, wizards wouldn't voluntarily register, and local authorities typically wouldn't provoke them. This regulation's significance wasn't substantial. "Where's Robert now?" Harag straightforwardly asked. Milo nodded. "He has already been informed. Before Mr. Harag arrived, we received notification from Count Huen. Robert has deliberately stayed in Storm City during this time to await Mr. Harag." "All right, I'll wait for him here for a while. By the way, do you have many great night-level personnel in the association?" Harag asked, relaxedly reclining on the sofa with his eyes closed. Milo was somewhat taken aback, then smiled. "There are just 3 great night-level individuals in Storm City, and currently, only Robert frequently takes on quests." Harag roughly knew. It seems the one following behind that day was Robert. His strength is indeed quite good. Half an hour later, there was a knock at the door, and a man's steady and powerful voice came through. "Milo, I'm here." "Robert has arrived. Sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Harag." Milo smiled as he stood to open the door. When the door opened, Harag looked towards the entrance, confirming Robert was indeed the grand night-level thief from that day. Initially, Robert was stunned upon seeing Harag. His expression fluctuated slightly. Then he quickly adjusted, pretending not to recognize Harag. "It's really him. Did he recognize me?" "No. That day, he probably only sensed my presence, but couldn't have seen what I looked like. He shouldn't be able to recognize me." Robert's mind raced as he walked over. "Robert, this is Mr. Harag. He wants to inquire about some matters. You two have a chat. I'll be off to handle the association's affairs," Milo said, having completed his task once Robert arrived. "Have a seat," Harag stated, sitting on the sofa, taking a leisurely sip of water. "All right." Robert felt inexplicably tense. It had been years since he ever trembled when killing, yet he felt nervous at that moment. He sat on the sofa uprightly, like a child caught doing something wrong. "Did you acquire this?" Harag brought out the resentful doll, speaking candidly. Upon seeing the resentful doll, Robert gasped. Aye. Robert was at a loss, unsure how to respond to the question. He knew Harag was a mysterious wizard, fearing an incorrect answer might cost him his life. "No need to be nervous. I just want to ask where you found it. I won't do anything to you," Harag reassured him. Robert took a deep breath, calming himself. "I indeed obtained this doll, but I found it." "Found it?" Harag asked with a hint of skepticism. Seeing Harag's dubious gaze, Robert hurriedly added, "It's true. It was found. That person was likely a wizard, dressed in a robe, holding this doll. I thought that something a wizard clung to even in death must be valuable, so I summoned the courage to pick it up. But after I took it, the doll gave me an uncomfortable feeling. It wasn't likely anything good, probably something ominous, so I sold it to Count Huan. Those nobles, aren't short on money and enjoy collecting such things." Throughout, Harag monitored Robert's state, receiving from Shenlong a probability of 99.6% that he was telling the truth. After a moment of pondering, Harag asked, "Where exactly did you find it?" "Picked it up on the only path leading into the mountains outside Valley Town," Robert said, glancing at Harag as if to gauge his reaction. He continued, "I really found it. That wizard's death had nothing to do with me." Seeing Robert's eagerness to explain, Harag knew he was misunderstood. So he said, "I have nothing to do with that wizard. I don't even know who he is, and I'm not here to accuse anyone because of his death." Only after hearing this did Robert relax and breathe a sigh of relief. Valley Town. Harag had never heard of this place before. He looked at Robert and asked, "Where is Valley Town?" "Just east of Storm City, about a 3-day ride away." Robert was familiar with these places and spoke without any hesitation. "Is there anything special about that place?" Harag was a bit puzzled as to why a wizard would die there. Robert scratched the back of his head, thought for a moment, and said, "Not that I know of. It's just an ordinary mountain town with a relatively small population." "Are there any special rumors about the place?" "Ghost stories are fine too." Harag continued to ask. Robert shook his head. "I'm not too sure about that. I'm not a local. There should be some ghost stories. There's always a few such tales in every place. If you want to know more, you'd best ask the locals." "Does the Adventurers Association have any information on that place?" Harag asked. Robert nodded. "They should. The association usually keeps records of the surrounding areas." "Don't leave yet. We might need you to lead the way later." Harag stood up, ready to look into the Adventurers Association's records. Upon hearing the news, Milo quickly rushed over, taking Harag and Robert to the 4th floor. The 4th floor resembled an archive, with rows of cabinets filled with files. "These are records of the surrounding geography. Let me see for Valley Town. It should be here." Milo searched through the cabinets and finally stopped in front of one, opened it, and took out a file folder. Milo handed the file folder to Harag. "This contains all the information about Valley Town for the past 30 years. Harag took the file folder and pulled out a thick stack of documents. He sat down on a long bench nearby, slowly perusing the Valley Town records. Valley Town has a history of over 200 years, with a population consistently between 200 to 300. From the records, it appears to be a very ordinary town with nothing special about it. The records note some information from the past 30 years, the most serious being geological disasters like landslides, but nothing seemingly unusual. Could it be this isn't the place?" Originally, Harag suspected Valley Town might be the production site of the resentful doll, potentially a resource point, rich in casting materials and magic potion materials. Places like this usually have some strange occurrences, which for ordinary people would be supernatural events. However, this Valley Town was too ordinary without any anomalies. "Vice President Milo, do you know anything about this place?" Harag asked after reviewing the materials. Milo thought for a moment and said, "I'm sorry, I'm not very familiar with it. It's just an ordinary town. A wizard died there not long ago. Did you know?" Harag asked Milo. Milo was a bit surprised. "A wizard? I hadn't heard about that." Harag glanced at Robert. "That's what he said." Robert explained, "I did indeed find a dead body out there on that mountain path, with that doll in its hand, but I can't confirm if it was a wizard. I judged it based on the attire. But I haven't heard any follow-up news from there either, so it might not even be a wizard." Milo queried, "That can't be right, whether the deceased was a wizard or not. I haven't heard of anyone dying in Valley Town." "When did you find the body, Robert?" "About 2 months ago," Robert replied truthfully. Milo shook his head. "Impossible for the last 2 months. I haven't heard of any deaths there. Unless Robert was the only one who saw the body, and someone disposed of it before anyone else could notice. The Adventurers Association is typically very informed, and with Valley Town's small population and only one path leading out of the mountains, any death on that path would surely be discovered and reported by the locals. Yet, the Adventurers Association had no information whatsoever in this regard. Finally, something out of the ordinary. Harag thought this might be related to a mysterious event or simply a human-created incident. He stood up and said, "Robert, come with me. Lead the way to Valley Town." "All right." Robert nodded, not daring to refuse. Harag had Shunlan record the Valley Town information, but found no valuable insights yet. He returned the file folder before heading downstairs. To Sid, who was waiting below, he said, "I'm going out for a while. You should go back first." "Sir, don't you need me to accompany you?" Sid eagerly offered his assistance. Harag shook his head. "You're too weak. If anything happens, I won't have time to look after you. You should go back first." Harag's blunt remarks left Sid awkwardly scratching his head. "Then I'll be going back now, sir." Milo arranged 2 horses and prepared some dried food and water for Harag and Robert. Though Storm City was some distance from Valley Town, and despite their great strength, the duo still needed basic supplies. Without delay, Harag mounted the horse and headed towards the city gate, with Robert close behind. In the city, Harag had to maintain his speed, but once outside, he gave the horse a hard kick to the flank and dashed off. After leaving Storm City, they soon entered the mountains. The terrain here was nothing but vast stretches of mountains, slowing their pace considerably. They were either climbing or descending, unable to gallop freely as they did on flat ground. 2 days later, Harag and Robert arrived at Valley Town. A mountain path encircled the town, known for its Heaven's Edge formation. As Harag walked along the path intending to enter, a squirrel on a nearby tree jabbered incessantly. "Shut up." Robert found the squirrel annoying and scared it off with a few threats. The squirrel was indeed frightened, and with a few leaps between branches, it disappeared. "Sir, I found the deceased here that day, lying on his back, clutching the doll tightly. I had to exert some effort to pry it from his hands." Robert recounted the events of that day. Harag glanced at the spot Robert was pointing to, right at the valley entrance at the mouth of the one-line sky canyon. Why did they die? Harag pondered over this question, not rushing to go inside. The squirrel's cry just now bothered him. Animals usually have very sharp senses, and that was a warning cry. Of course, it could also be warning its companions of these 2 outsiders. "Shunlan, check if there's anything unusual around." To be cautious, Harag had Shunlan perform a comprehensive scan of the surroundings. No anomalies detected. No magic power flow detected. No magic power residue detected. Harag scrutinized Shunlan's detection results. Everything appeared normal. He glanced at the valley and took a step inside. Nothing unusual, and nothing happened. Harag closed his eyes to sense, finding the free energy particles around were very normal, with no special fluctuations or flows. The light in the Heaven's Edge was relatively dim. The cliffside at the roadside was somewhat damp, with water flowing down in some places. Harag followed the mountain road, quickly passing through the canyon area of the one-line sky canyon, finding the view ahead wide open. A small town sat on a distant hillside, with wooden houses quietly nestled among the mountains, occasionally seeing people walking by. The town entrance had a small tavern. When Harag entered, there weren't many people inside, only 3 people split between 2 tables, with butterbeer on the tables. As Harag and Robert entered, the tavern, which had been filled with conversation, quieted down. The 2 sitting together looked like hunters, while the man sitting alone seemed like a blacksmith from his clothes. When the 2 hunters saw Harag and Robert, they frowned, appearing wary of them. The 2 picked up their glasses and drained their butterbeer in one go, then left without saying a word. The blacksmith glanced at the 2 of them, smiled, and took a sip of beer. His glass still had more than half full, indicating he wasn't planning to leave soon. Harag went over and smiled. "Mind if we share a table?" The blacksmith was a big-bearded uncle. He laughed. "Of course not. your new face is here. Are you here for business? Harag pulled out a chair and sat down, telling the bartender, 2 butter beers, please. After ordering, he turned back to the blacksmith uncle and said, I won't beat around the bush. I'd like to ask if you know about a death on the mountain road outside, around 2 months ago. 2 months ago? The blacksmith uncle stroked his beard thoughtfully. No, I don't think so. This is a small place. If someone died, we locals would surely know, but I haven't heard of such a thing. He took a sip of beer and continued. This place is usually very peaceful, rarely any murders. There are many people here, connections are simple, and as far as I know, there's seldom deep hatred. The beer Harag ordered soon arrived, 2 large, full mugs. He wasn't accustomed to it first, but got used to it after drinking more, mainly because there weren't many options. After taking a sip, Harag said, we just heard about it, so we came to ask. The blacksmith uncle realized, I see, then the news must be wrong. You know how it is, some stories drift far and deviate from the truth. We'll ask elsewhere later, Harag nodded. The blacksmith uncle continued. You must be from the Storm City investigation team. I guess you came to investigate after hearing about a murder. You'll likely be making a trip for nothing. I've been here for years. There couldn't have been a murder without me knowing. Investigation team? Storm City no longer has such an organization. Now it's the Adventurers Association handling these matters, Robert interjected. The blacksmith uncle said in confusion. Adventurers Association? It seems I've fallen behind on the news, ha ha ha. He laughed, taking a big gulp of beer, exhaling contentedly. After chatting with the blacksmith uncle for a while, not gaining any valuable information, Harag paid the bill and prepared to leave the tavern. Thanks, the blacksmith uncle thanked from behind. Harag also covered his share of the beer. Harag pushed open the tavern door and found it had already turned dark outside. This place had no street lights, so except for some houses in the distance with their lights on, the roads were completely dark. Robert, have we been inside for that long? If I remember correctly, it was only afternoon when we entered. Harag noticed something was off. He got no response from behind, and when he turned around, Robert, who had followed him out, was gone. Harag turned back into the tavern. The lights were still on. The butterbeer on the tables remained, still bubbling. But there was no one inside the tavern. The blacksmith uncle was gone, and so was the tavern owner. Harag checked around with Shinlan's feedback. The entire tavern was empty, deathly quiet without a sound. Picking up a butterbeer mug, Harag found nothing unusual. The butterbeer seemed normal with nothing strange about it. Taking a deep breath, Harag walked out of the tavern. Lights still glowed on distant houses, and silhouettes could be seen behind the windows. Stumbling in the dark, he headed towards a house. It seemed there was more than one person inside. Reaching the door, he faintly heard conversation and a woman's laughter inside, as if an old couple were whispering at night. He knocked on the door, and instantly, it fell silent, a deathly stillness. No one questioned him, and no one came to the door. Harag's knocking seemed to have pressed a pause button on the world, and the people inside seemed frozen, without making a sound. After a while, he heard the dull sound of something being dragged behind the door, and the harsh noise of hard objects scraping the ground. Bang! A muffled sound suddenly erupted. Harag listened intently, and it sounded like an axe hacking into flesh. Bang! Bang! The sound of the axe swings had a rhythm, slow and steady, reminding Harag of butchers slaughtering livestock. Bang! The door suddenly shivered. Something behind it seemed to be violently battering it. Bang! 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 The whole house started shaking. Whatever was behind the door was clearly accelerating its assault, desperately trying to break out. The door's quality was unexpectedly high. The entire house trembled from the pounding, yet the door remained unmoved. If it were an ordinary wooden door, it might have shattered in 1 or 2 hits. Harag felt a foreboding premonition, sensing a strong danger behind the door. Get away from here. Instinctively, this thought surfaced, and he quickened his pace to leave the house. Harag saw through Shinlan's environment monitor that there was nothing behind the door, no one at all. Yet the whole house continued to shudder violently, and the banging behind the door grew stronger. There were definitely people just now. Harag had seen through Shinlan's monitor that there were indeed two people inside the house, a man and a woman. But at some point, these two people disappeared without a trace, and Harag couldn't sense it. He didn't find out from Shinlan's feedback when they had vanished. Better retreat first. After thinking it over, Harag felt it was too dangerous to stay and decided to turn back, intending to leave via the mountain road. Tap, tap, tap. As Harag walked forward, he suddenly heard footsteps behind him. He immediately stopped, and the footsteps behind him also came to a halt. Who's there? Harag looked back, seeing nothing but emptiness, and Shinlan hadn't detected any living presence. Dark energy shield. Mana shield. A shield. Harag applied 3 shields to himself, feeling a bit more secure in his heart. Not noticing anything unusual, he continued to walk forward. Tap, tap, tap. The footsteps behind sounded again, and Harag felt that there was indeed a person pressed close behind him. He could even feel the breath from behind blowing on his neck. But when he turned around, there was still no one there. The 3D model of the surroundings floated in Harag's vision. He carefully checked every area, finding no second person present. He quickened his pace, simply rushing forward, and the footsteps behind also sped up, seemingly pursuing him closely. Something's wrong. Harag suddenly stopped, frowning as he looked at the surrounding scenery. Turning around, he saw the road leading to the foot of the mountain, and in the distance at the foot of the mountain, he saw the one-line sky canyon. Why am I at the top of the mountain? Harag found that at some point he had reached the mountaintop, the area with the densest houses in Valley Town. The house he had knocked on earlier was midway up the mountain, not far from the tavern. Harag remembered clearly that he was heading toward the foot of the mountain. So how did he suddenly end up at the top? He stood in place for a moment, then continued to walk downhill, and when passing by that house, he found it particularly quiet inside, with nothing banging on the door. Harag deliberately detoured to walk away from that house. Passing by the tavern, the lights inside were still on, with not a sound to be heard. Harag peeked inside and saw the butterbeer mug on the table still in place, unchanged. Tap, tap, tap. The footsteps behind never stopped, and Harag never figured out where the sound was coming from. So far, he hadn't encountered any danger, suspecting that his own footsteps might be echoing in some way. Yet the feeling of being shadowed by someone never disappeared, and his neck still felt occasional breaths. I definitely need to brush up on necromancy knowledge when I get back. Facing such scenarios leaves me with too few options. Harag didn't panic, guessing that he had probably encountered something like an evil spirit. Necromancy is a vast field encompassing all sorts of knowledge, and many wizards specialize in it. Heaven's Edge was again right ahead. Just a few more steps on this mountain road would lead him out of Valley Town. But, just as I thought, as expected, Harag found himself at the top of the mountain again. He hadn't sensed when the surroundings had changed, not at all aware. The positions of the stars. Harag closed his eyes, sensing the positions of the stars above. The star positions hadn't changed much, differing little from usual. Harag could still clearly sense their presence. Seems like the road down the mountain won't work. Harag turned to look deeper into the town, where there were no streetlights. Only the residents' homes were lit. But after the recent experiences, he dared not knock on doors to seek out locals. He walked forward, intending to check out the situation in other places, and the footsteps behind instantly sounded again. The garden? Harag discovered a 3-story house, with lights on inside and voices and the sound of a violin emanating from within. There was a garden on the ground floor of the house, and from a distance, Harag felt that the plants in the garden seemed familiar. He slowed his pace and approached stealthily, the footsteps behind echoing loudly. The garden had many sunflower-like plants, but at this time, the flower heads were drooping back, facing away from the street outside, making it difficult for Harag to see the situation clearly. He drew closer, finally seeing the garden situation through Shinlan's detection. So many are demon flowers? Harag was shocked. The entire garden was full of demon flowers, the main ingredient for the Dawn Potion, which he had only recently dealt with as tricky magic potion materials. The footsteps behind Harag startled these demon flowers, causing them to raise their heads, each revealing coquettish female faces. The demon flowers all smiled seductively at Harag, their heads and stems swaying slowly like women's waists. Protected by the dark energy shield, Harag was immune to the demon flower's allure. Without saying a word, he retrieved a herb shovel from the space ring, jumped into the garden, and began digging. Ah, ah, ah. With each shovel strike Harag made, the demon flower in front would start a scream. But the screams were peculiar, not screams of pain, but rather akin to that kind of moaning, and the expressions on the faces and the flower heads grew stranger. Harag excavated the soil beneath the demon flower, then grabbed the roots and slowly pulled them out. As he grasped these roots, the demon flower trembled all over, its cries growing louder, as if the root area was particularly sensitive to them. Soon, the demon flower convulsed slightly, its long roots going limp, collapsing onto Harag, the expression on the flower face. Harag glanced at it, wrinkling his brow slightly with disdain as he peeled the demon flower off himself, then placed the entire plant into the space ring. After finishing one, he immediately proceeded to dig up a second. Demon flowers are a valuable commodity, sellable for quite a few magic stones. Harag paid no heed and planned to uproot the entire garden of demon flowers. Soon, the place was filled with rising and falling cries. Midway through digging up 16, movement occurred inside the house. He turned his head and saw a window next to him opened unnoticed, and a woman was staring at him through the window, wide-eyed. To be precise, it was a woman's head, her eyes fixed on him. On the windowsill was a woman's head, with a headless corpse behind it. The headless corpse held a violin in its left hand and gently caressed the head with its right hand. Harag stopped digging, stood up, and locked eyes with the head, the scene falling into silence. All the demon flowers closed their eyes, their flower heads drooping. The headless corpse raised its left hand, placed the violin on its shoulder, then lifted the head and slid it along the strings, blood dripping down the strings, strands entwining around the violin. The woman's head seemed to be immersed in the enchanting music, closing her eyes with a smile, savoring the violin's melody. In Harag's eyes, a mass of negative energy particles began to gather by the window. Without hesitation, he fired 3 corrosive arrows at the headless corpse playing the violin. When the corrosive arrows struck, the hit area of the headless corpse rapidly corroded, making sizzling sounds. The woman angrily opened her eyes, pain etched on her face. Harag raised his hand, his ring flashed, and a small fireball technique quickly formed, then flew towards the opposite side. The violin's music quickly resumed. The headless corpse's right arm suddenly swelled, transforming into a massive arm with red fur in mere moments. The arm was larger than the headless corpse itself, looking quite incongruous. The small fireball technique exploded upon impact on the giant arm, the surface quickly burning, emitting a stench of scorched meat. Soon after, the violin resumed, and the headless corpse swung its arm, punching towards Harag. The distance was too short, and Harag had no time to avoid it. The fist struck his 3-layer shield, sending him flying a few meters to the ground. He quickly adjusted his stance upon landing, rolled to dispel most of the force, then drew his longsword. The shield protected him, leaving him almost unharmed. Harag glanced at his shield status. The outermost layer, the ice shield, had taken significant damage and could likely only withstand one more such attack before shattering. Wind Elf's Blessing. Harag used another demonized item, boosting his agility by 2 points. He focused intently on the headless corpse and accelerated towards it. The violin sounded, and the arm swung once more. This time Harag had enough time to react and plenty of space to maneuver. With the aid of Shenlong, he easily dodged this strike. The headless corpse's movements were somewhat clumsy, taking time to retrieve its fist after each attack. Seizing this opening, Harag closed the distance to the headless corpse and struck at the violin with his sword. He noticed that countless negative energy particles surrounded the violin. Every time the violin sounded, the headless corpse would move, indicating that the violin was likely commanding the corpse. The long sword struck the violin, producing a metallic clash. Harag was not surprised. He had anticipated the violin might be quite hard. Holding his sword with both hands, he began furiously hacking at the violin, clanging sounds filling the air. The violin was clearly not invincible, as sword marks appeared on it after a short while. Harag grasped the violin, then slammed it forcefully to the ground. The music ceased abruptly, but Harag didn't stop, wildly smashing the violin. He slammed it on the ground, against the wall, turning the scene into an act of sheer violence. Bang, bang, bang. The loud noise was reminiscent of a construction site. Harag didn't know how many times he smashed it until he stopped, realizing the violin strings were all broken and the body was heavily damaged. He tossed the violin on the ground, stamping it hard underfoot. Corrosive arrow. Small fireball technique. Harag cast several more spells until the negative energy particles dissipated from the violin before stopping. Looking up, he saw the headless corpse beside the window had slumped, weakened against the sill, the giant right hand returning to normal. The right hand's clothes were torn, revealing a pale arm beneath. It should be dead, right? Harag glanced at the battered violin on the ground, feeling as though he had used excessive force to kill something. The demon flowers in the garden quietly lifted their heads to watch him. When Harag turned, they averted their eyes, as if he were truly terrifying. Seeing no anomalies around, Harag resumed digging with his shovel, with more than 10 demon flowers left to excavate. Soon, the garden echoed with cries anew. An outsider would probably mistake it for some indecent party in this open-air garden. About half an hour later, Harag finished digging up all the demon flowers in the garden, collecting 42 in total. Glancing around, he confirmed there was nothing else of value in the garden before preparing to leave. The town was filled with houses, and this garden was merely the ground floor garden of one such house. Harag continued forward, the sound of footsteps again trailing behind him. This time, much more cautiously, he felt that every house with lights on might hold something inside. Solving the violin didn't mean he could deal with other items, so it was prudent to act cautiously. Following the town's path, he noticed something peculiar. The number of houses seemed to have increased. He distinctly remembered that the valley town he glimpsed from the mountainside hadn't had this many houses. "Master, finally found you." Robert's voice abruptly sounded from behind. Harag turned to see Robert breathlessly calling out to him, "Don't come near me yet." Harag drew his sword, aiming it at Robert as he moved closer. Robert awkwardly retreated. "It was abrupt of me. Master, it's truly me, not some foul thing in disguise." "Where did you just go?" Harag coldly inquired. Robert was puzzled. "I'm not sure either. I remember we were drinking in the tavern. Then suddenly you vanished, and I ended up in town looking for you, but this cursed town was empty. Then I knocked on a house's door, and before I knew it, I was inside it. I panicked, tried to open the door to leave, but it was locked tight as if bolted shut. I even tried the windows to escape, but they were locked and incredibly sturdy, beyond my ability to break them. When I was desperate to get out, suddenly I was in the street again and saw you up ahead." Robert hurriedly explained, fearing that Harag might cut him down with a sword on a whim. Although he was a great knight, he had witnessed wizards in action more than once. He had no means to counter those eerie spells and could only allow wizards to have their way. Robert never considered counterattacking a wizard. He only thought about how to survive if Harag made a move against him. Harag carefully analyzed what he said, sensing that Robert wasn't lying. Yet he felt there was something amiss that he couldn't quite pinpoint. "You said you were trapped in a house. Which one?" Harag questioned. Robert glanced around, recognizing the nearby house for a moment, then said, "It's this house." Harag turned to look. It was also a 3-story building, with no lights on inside. He stepped back a few paces, distancing himself from the house. "Did you hear footsteps behind me?" Harag retreated a few more steps, and the footsteps followed. Robert's expression was somewhat frightened. I heard them, but I didn't see anything behind you. I think something has set its sights on me. Harag sighed, a bit helpless. He glanced at Robert. We'd better leave here quickly. There's something wrong with these houses. Robert had suddenly entered after knocking on the door and couldn't come out no matter what, and Harag guessed it would be the same result if he knocked. What puzzled him was why Robert came out inexplicably without doing anything, just in time to encounter him passing by. Harag noticed his surroundings suddenly lit up. The house beside them suddenly lit up, emitting a soft yellow glow from the windows. Harag tried to look inside through the windows, but could only see a field of yellow light. Shenlon's scan showed that the entire house was empty. Of course, Harag didn't believe there was truly nothing inside. Shenlon couldn't detect non-living entities like evil spirits, a conclusion he reached from past experiences. He believed it was due to his own lack of knowledge in this area. So Shenlon didn't have effective detection methods to discover the presence of evil spirits. At the same time, Harag felt that Shenlon was no longer an ordinary gene chip from a previous life. As he became a wizard and his strength grew stronger, Shenlon's functions gradually began to change, becoming much more powerful than a typical gene chip. Go! Harag growled at Robert, then dashed out first. The moment the lights came on in the nearby house, a sense of malice assaulted him, and he figured whatever was inside would be troublesome, so he wanted to flee immediately. Seeing Harag's urgency, Robert also realized the seriousness of the situation and quickly followed suit. Where did he go? Robert suddenly found that Harag had disappeared after running a few steps ahead. Robert looked around, unable to find any sign of Harag, and a chill surged through his heart. After running a few steps, Harag found himself inside a house. He surveyed the surroundings to confirm he was on the first floor. Harag walked to the window and looked out, seeing Robert standing outside, looking around in confusion. By observing the street scene outside, he confirmed that he was in the house that had just lit up. Harag checked the doors and windows. The window locks could be opened, but no matter how hard he pulled, the windows wouldn't budge. Bang! He picked up a chair and smashed it hard against the window, but it didn't move an inch. Harag tried hacking at it with his longsword, but not even a scratch was left on the window. Seeing this, he temporarily gave up trying to break the window. Harag went to the door and found that it wasn't actually locked. The doorknob could be pressed down, but the door just wouldn't open. No matter how much force he used, he couldn't open the door. After trying for a while, Harag gave up, not wanting to waste his energy. It was clear there was no conventional way out. Outside, Robert occasionally glanced inside, but he didn't seem to see Harag, though Harag could see Robert from inside. Looks like I'm in the same predicament Robert was in. He inexplicably came out back then. What are the hidden rules? Harag began to ponder. He glanced at the room's furnishings. It was just an ordinary residential home with nothing special. Harag wandered around the rooms on the first floor. The first floor consisted of the living room and kitchen. What's on the second floor? Although Shenlon's scan showed the second and third floors were empty, that didn't mean there weren't other things present. He cast 3 shields on himself and began to ascend the stairs. The entire house was pitch black, and Harag relied on Shenlon to see the interior. Though the lights had just come on, Harag saw that there wasn't a single lamp on the first floor. As Harag ascended the stairs, the footsteps behind him continued, the rhythm of 2 sets of footsteps following each other closely. Just as he reached the second floor, he stopped in his tracks. In the middle of the second floor was a dining table with a plate on it containing a human arm. Judging from the wound on the arm, it had been forcibly torn off, still dripping blood, clearly freshly torn. Why does his hand seem so familiar? He looked at the arm, feeling as though he'd seen it before. It seemed familiar. Harag approached a bit more, noting the neatly placed knife and fork beside the plate, while the chair was slightly askew. It seemed as though someone had just been sitting there about to eat, but had suddenly left due to some matter, not even having time to put the chair back in place. Harag didn't touch the table or the arm, and continued on to other rooms on the second floor. Soon, He found a bedroom on the second floor with a large leg hanging by the second floor window, blood still dripping down, creating a puddle on the floor. In the bedroom, Harag found some items that appeared to belong to an ordinary resident's bedroom. A family photograph. On the bedside table, Harag found a family photo. It showed a family of three, a couple, and a young daughter. But strangely, the three people in the photo had no faces. Their facial features weren't blank spaces, but absent, just a flat facial surface. The room was very quiet, with the sound of dripping blood, drip, drip, clearly audible. Harag looked back at the leg again. The arm had no clothing, but this leg had tattered fabric hanging on it. It looks like Robert's pants. Recalling the fabric hanging from the leg, Harag noted it looked very similar in color and material to the pants Robert was wearing. But wasn't he outside? Harag recalled the arm on the dining table outside, suddenly realizing that it looked a lot like Robert's. Because of using a dagger for years, Robert had noticeable marks on his hand. No wonder it looked so familiar. When Harag saw that arm earlier, it felt familiar, but he didn't connect it to Robert right away. He had just seen Robert out in the street from the first-floor window, so how could he be dismembered in an instant? Harag put down the photo he was holding, didn't touch the leg, and turned to leave the room. The arm on the dining table was still there. Harag glanced at it as he passed by and then left. He continued to the other two rooms on the second floor, where he also found a hand and a leg. There were also some photos in these rooms, both group photos and solo ones. Without exception, they all had no faces. Harag strolled through the second floor, finding nothing else, so he went up the stairs to the third floor. He recalled that outside, he remembered the third floor should have an attic-like structure. Upon reaching the third floor, Harag found it was indeed a low attic where you had to walk slightly bent over to avoid hitting your head. As he bowed his head, he noticed something and stopped. On the floor was a long trail of blood, extending all the way to the windowsill at the far end of the attic. Following the blood trail with his eyes, Harag found a severed head placed beneath the attic window. Robert. He carefully identified the face. There were several terrifying wounds on it, making it almost unrecognizable. Harag observed for a while. The wounds looked like they were made by an axe, very deep. The skin and flesh at the wound had rolled back, exposing the white bone underneath. Did you die so tragically? Harag scratched his nose awkwardly. After all, it was him who asked Robert to lead the way, and now that Robert died so horribly, he felt somewhat guilty. Dying in such a place, Robert's remains couldn't even be taken out. I should think about how to get out of here. Harag shook his head. He was in danger himself and hadn't found a way out. If the dead Robert were real, then he probably wasn't far from danger himself. Despite being a strong Great Knight level, Robert was silently taken out. Harag scanned the attic, which was full of clutter, nothing else. He was looking for the axe, the murder weapon used on Robert, but so far, he hadn't seen it. After searching the attic for a while and finding nothing, Harag started heading downstairs. He had been all around the house, but found nothing else. If Robert is dead, then part of his body is still missing. Where did it go? Harag was puzzled. Thinking as he descended the stairs, he returned to the first floor. Harag went to the window to see if Robert was still outside, but as he approached, he found a face pressed against the window. Robert was pressing his face against the window, looking hard inside, seemingly searching for Harag. Bang! 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 Suddenly, a heavy banging sound came from upstairs, as if someone was hitting the door with something heavy. A chill rose in Harag's heart, as he clearly felt a huge threat from something upstairs. I have to get out of here quickly. His heartbeat quickened, and the feeling of impending doom grew stronger. The banging from upstairs abruptly stopped, and the house became quiet again, yet Harag felt a sudden chill around him. He turned to see a little girl on the stairs leading to the second floor, wearing a red plaid dress, holding a doll quietly. The girl's face, like in the photos, was featureless, but Harag could feel her gazing at him. She's smiling. Harag suddenly felt that the little girl was smiling at him. Then, suddenly, a mouth appeared on the girl's featureless face, revealing white teeth with some red filaments between them. Harag felt no warmth from this smile, only a chill down his spine. In his hand, fire elemental energy particles quickly gathered, and a small fireball technique was about to form. The little girl seemed not afraid at all, showing a horrific smile as she gradually walked down the stairs towards Harag. At this moment, Harag noticed that the doll in the little girl's hand was also a resentful doll. Could the resentful doll in my space ring have come from here? That wizard got this thing, but died outside of Valley Town. Harag noticed the resentful doll in the girl's hand. Although its appearance was different from the one in the space ring, both were top-level curse technique casting materials. But now he had no time to think about acquiring the resentful doll. His mind was racing to figure out how to escape. Just then, there was a noise at the door. The sound of a key opening the door came from the entrance, causing the little girl to stop in her tracks. The key inserted into the lock, and then turned with a click, and the door opened. A big bearded man stepped in with an axe hanging from his head. The axe was embedded in his forehead, deeply cleaving into his head. Yet he seemed unaware, and upon seeing Harag, showed a delighted expression. "It's you. Thank you for treating me to a butterbeer." "Blacksmith uncle?" Harag was taken aback, surprised to see the blacksmith uncle he had met at the tavern. But now the blacksmith uncle was clearly different from when he met in the tavern. Besides the axe in his head, his eyeballs had turned a pale gray. His facial skin was also abnormal, presenting a bluish-green hue, not quite human-looking. The blacksmith uncle chuckled warmly, although his facial skin seemed stiff, making the smile look wooden and spooky. He looked at the little girl with feigned anger. "Go back. Don't be rude to our guest." The little girl, holding the doll with both hands, trembled slightly, seemingly very frightened. She turned and ran up the stairs in small steps, disappearing in the blink of an eye. The chill enveloping Harag disappeared too, making him feel much lighter and breathe a sigh of relief. "You should leave here. You shouldn't have come," the blacksmith uncle said, seeing the little girl upstairs and turning back. Harag nodded. "Thank you." Clearly, the blacksmith uncle had helped him, without whom he couldn't imagine what that terrifying little girl would do to him. He had no confidence dealing with such a thing. The blacksmith uncle sighed. "Alas, few in the town can remain lucid. Haha, can't even be called people." He forced a smile, looked up, and said, "You should go quickly. I can't guarantee when I'll lose my mind. It will be dangerous then. Hurry and go." The blacksmith uncle looked anxious, as if he recalled something, and urged Harag to leave quickly. Harag nodded and walked to the door, turning back to ask, "Blacksmith uncle, do you know how to get out?" The blacksmith uncle paused, thinking for a moment with a pained expression. Holding his forehead, he said, "I've forgotten a lot, but I know if you stay until dawn, you'll be able to leave. Most importantly, stay away from these houses. Don't get close." "Ah!" He clutched his head in pain and squatted down as a large lump suddenly bulged out from his back, unknown what it was. Seeing this, Harag turned and ran, closing the door behind him. Bam! The next second, a loud noise came from behind the door, and Harag felt the entire street tremble. "Robert!" Harag glanced around, but didn't see Robert. He remembered clearly that Robert was just outside the window, but was gone when he came out. Could it be that he was frightened away by the blacksmith uncle? Harag suspected that when the blacksmith uncle opened the door, Robert must have run off after sensing the danger, considering it's impossible for a living person with an axe in their head to open a door like nothing happened. He couldn't be bothered to worry about Robert anymore, hoping that Robert would have good luck to escape this ordeal. Harag glanced down the mountain, which had already been proven to be inaccessible, so he turned and ran north where there weren't any residential houses. Since the blacksmith uncle advised staying away from houses, there must be a reason. Harag's own experiences also confirmed that there was indeed something in each of these houses, and none was easy to deal with. However, there are indeed many good things here, a whole garden of demon flowers, and the resentful doll in the little girl's arms. These are all valuable items. Harag sighed, still lacking strength. If he were strong enough, he'd simply snatch the resentful doll from the little girl's hands. Daring her to resist would earn her a punch. But for now, he could only flee in defeat. Once again, Herag employed the wind elf's blessing to hasten his escape from the town's residential area. While he was running down the street, as he passed each house, the lights would turn on, followed by various noises. Herag neither looked nor listened, charging headlong to the north. Once he successfully escaped the residential area, he realized he was drenched in sweat, unsure if it was from fear or exhaustion. The malice emanating from those houses exerted immense pressure on him, creating a sensation of confronting death itself. To the north was a small grove and some cultivated fields. As Herag arrived, a gust of wind blew by. The breeze brushed against his face, making him feel much more at ease. He sniffed. This smell seems like the fragrance of dragon's beard grass. Dragon's beard grass is a valuable magic potion material, used in the creation of various high-tier potions, among which the most famous is called the Earth God's Favor. The Earth God's Favor can greatly enhance a wizard's earth element affinity over a short period, with a broad range of uses. If an earth element wizard uses it during advancement, it can significantly increase their success probability. Upon consuming the Earth God's Favor, when using earth element spells, the effect greatly improves, as if the surrounding earth elements serve you, requiring only a bit of magic power to mobilize a lot of earth element power. This kind of high-tier magic potion material, much like the Resentful Doll, is extremely expensive. Herag wasn't sure of the specific price, as he had no previous means to engage with such items. Now, as Larry's student, he could sell these to Larry. The price could be lower, but the safety is assured. Larry himself would face no issues selling these items on the market, as owning such items is normal for an official wizard, allowing him to earn more from the price difference. The Resentful Doll and the Space Ring. Herag planned to sell it to Larry later. He didn't specialize in the curse technique, so he had no chance to use it. Herag glanced at the distant fields, which were planted with many crops. As he got closer, he saw that the outer fields were planted with a good amount of dragon's beard grass, making Herag's mouth water. Herag cast 3 shields on himself, then began carefully digging out the dragon's beard grass with a shovel. The stamens of the dragon's beard grass have a long, thin red tongue, which is somewhat aggressive, capable of piercing several holes in a regular person with no problem. But to a wizard apprentice like Herag, 1 shield was enough to defend against the dragon's beard grass's attacks. Herag squatted in the field, with the surrounding dragon's beard grass frantically poking him with their tongues, the tongues hitting the shield sounding like pitter-pattering rain. After about half an hour, Herag dug up all 7 dragon's beard grass plants from the field. The quantity wasn't as much as the demon flower, but their value far exceeded it. The adjacent fields were also planted with many magic potion materials, many of which Herag couldn't name, having only studied the basic introduction to herbalism and not yet taken more advanced courses. He even worried that his digging method might be incorrect, potentially damaging some magic potion materials. But since he was already here, he couldn't just leave it. Even if some were damaged, it was unavoidable. Herag moved to another area with the shovel, slightly increased his speed in digging these magic potion materials, while concentrating his spiritual power and staying vigilant of the surroundings. He hadn't forgotten where he was. It was a creepy place where danger could appear at any time. If he became too engrossed in digging magic potion materials, he might not even notice when danger approached. Another hour or so passed, and Herag was still digging up magic potion materials. Looking up, he saw the field was extensive, with no way he could dig it all up overnight. There were just too many magic potion materials. Did someone plant these? Herag was a bit confused since these magic potion materials seemed deliberately cultivated. Because many magic potion materials were classified by type in different fields, and the planting areas were neat and organized, completely unlike wild growth. If it was artificially cultivated, it must have been done by a wizard. To cultivate such a large area of magic potion materials in a place like this, the wizard must be very powerful. It seems that the wizard isn't here now, or else I'd be in big trouble. Herag felt a bit apprehensive, thinking that if the wizard happened to return now, he'd surely be in for some serious consequences. I'm just picking up, not stealing. He comforted himself. Shenlong, how long until dawn? Harag asked. About an hour and a half, but due to the special environment, it might not be accurate, Shenlong replied. Here the environment is special, and Shenlong could only provide time estimates based on normal patterns. But everything here is filled with mystery and uncertainty. Even if the sun rose from the west, Harag wouldn't be surprised, as the sunrise time couldn't be inferred with ordinary logic.